Good evening and welcome to our meeting tonight of Tuesday, February 8th. The school committee is coming out of an executive session, and so we will go ahead and just start our meeting. We will start, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As I do every meeting, I'm going to read the mission statement. The vision of the Wakefield Public Schools is to graduate students who are confident, lifelong learners, who are respectful and caring members of their community. Our mission is to prepare students for college, career, and community by providing rich and challenging curriculum, high-quality instruction, and educational experiences that meet their individual needs and interests. Public comment. So I think we've got somebody here in studio. If you want to come up to the table.
Thank you.
Yeah. You can just introduce yourself and give us your address.
Thank you. My name is Alan Roycroft. I live at 6 Patriot Circle, Wakefield. May I proceed?
Yeah, please.
My concern or my question, or to start the format, is regarding the mask mandates regarding our children at Wakefield High and Dolbear and Galvin, what have you. After 2 years, I feel that with the virus and the vaccinations, that it's time for somebody, Wakefield, to stand up and make a bold decision, and it's time to move on. At least take that chance. There's a lot of negative regarding to the mask. I'm not saying for those who want the mask, don't wear the mask. I'm not saying that we should belittle those who want to wear them. Safety first, I'm fine with that, but I'm seeing, as a parent, the negative effect it's having on school regarding social depression, anxiety. These masks are really starting to have a health issue, I think, more detrimental than the virus itself. So I want to know the plan. What is the plan moving forward? We're at 80% vaccination. The country and other states are starting to, remove the mandate. I want to ask, I don't want to be rude, where Wakefield School stands at that. I have children in this school, and I'd like to know, as a parent, what is the plan? What has to be the number? What has to be the criteria that we could, I don't want to use the word new normal. I want some normalcy in my children's life. My oldest is a senior here, and the anxiety over prom, we sitting outside, do I have to wear a mask with my prom dress? Does it have to match my prom dress? Do I have to get a special mask? So to me, as a parent, as a father, those weigh on me, and I want to share my concerns and with you guys and let you know that I can only speak for myself. I don't know what the rest of the community thinks, but it saddens me to have that discussion with my daughter regarding prom and home and other type of events that regarding the mask. So like I said, I just want to know the plan. I want some transparency from the group, and this is my first time, so this is very important to me, where I came here tonight in front of all you guys and ask you, please, let me know, let us know, what is the plan moving forward? Thank you.
So Al, I know I sent you, and typically we don't respond to you, but I sent you an email kind of explaining that we're not going to have a back and forth.
That's
what
fine.
I do want you to realize, though, is we are going to spend a little bit of time talking about COVID numbers and kind of the situation at Doug's section, which is maybe 5-10-ish minutes away. So if you want to stay,
Sure.
I'd encourage you to stay for that
Sure.
part of the conversation. And then I know Doug offered to talk to you. You and I can catch up separately. But I did want you to know that there's probably going to be some discussion happening about this topic tonight.
Great.
We're just not going to necessarily kind of respond directly
Right,
to you.
and that's fine. I just
Yep.
want to put it that,
Yep,
as a
absolutely.
concerned parent, I don't feel I'm doing my parental if I don't bring myself here and stand in front of the board, as very uncomfortable as it is, to show that I am concerned, and I can't be the only one, But I just want the plan. I'm not here to bash mask or vaccinations or non-vac. I just want the plan for my kids moving forward. I want to be able to look them in the eye and say, hey, it's almost done. Or, hey, we got to stick it out, X, Y, Z. Or this has to be done. Knowledge is king. And I think as parents, we need to share that knowledge with our children to make it a little smooth transaction. That's all. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
WCAT folks, do we have anybody else for public comment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Just wanted to check. Okay. So with that, Student Advisory Council, do we have any of our students on tonight? I'm realizing I didn't say. Ooh. Oh, Sophia.
Me and Mom are out tonight, but I can start us off.
Okay.
So regarding athletics and extracurricular activities, the Wakefield High School boys indoor track team won the MSCTA State Relay Championship. The team finished their season as undefeated league champions, and they will compete for the state championship next week in Boston. Both the boys and girls indoor track teams broke several all-time Wakefield High School records this winter. Senior Sammy Seabury broke the all-time Middlesex League record in the 2-mile, and Seabury has accepted a scholarship to run at Boston University next year. Wakefield High School track and cross country coach Perry Pappas was named Coach of the Year by the United States Track and Cross Country Coaches Association. And regarding music, Diego Windsor and Tommy Mulcahy were selected to represent Wakefield in the 2023 Massachusetts All-State Music Festival. After 2 rounds of auditions by over 1,200 students from around the state, Diego was selected on string bass for the orchestra, and Tommy was selected for the chorus. And Molly can take it from there.
Hello. An academic reminder is that report cards were posted in iPass last week, and other school news and timely happenings are our Black Student Union has created an initiative for unity and solidarity during Black History Month. Blackout Wednesdays will happen every Wednesday in February, and all students and staff are encouraged to wear all black on these days. There will also be a half day next Wednesday, February 16th, and then February break is the following week after that. Lastly, it's National School Counselor Week, and we would like to thank all of the WMHS and WPS school counselors for their hard work with our students, especially over the past 2 years.
Thanks, Molly. Any questions for our advisory? Okay. I
Thank
think
you
we're
very
good.
much.
Yeah, thanks, girls, for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Consent agenda.
We have a motion.
Yes.
I move that we approve the minutes of the January 25, 2022 school committee meeting and accept the minutes of the school committee policy and communication subcommittee meeting of January 18, 2022, and the minutes of the school committee student services subcommittee meeting of January 19, 2022, and the minutes of the school committee finance and facilities subcommittee meetings plural, of January 20 and January 27, 2022.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? I just realized I need to do the roll call in here, too. Judy, our clerk, is not here tonight, so I'm going to do the roll call. So I'm going to, so Ms. Vayer, which is me, yes. Mr. Markham?
Yes?
Mr. Ingalls?
Yes?
Mr. Boudreau? Not paying
Yes.
attention?
Yes, I was kind of.
Ms. Wall?
Yes.
Mr. Piscadlo?
Yes.
And Ms. Lena?
Yes.
Okay. Christine, business reports.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Tonight you have the financial reports in front of you from July 1st, 2021 to January 31st, 2022. So we're through 7 months of the fiscal year. The available budget remaining for the local budget is about 10.24%. We have a couple of lines that have gone slightly over, so we'll be looking at doing some transfers, particularly in the contracted services line. And the grants we're continue to spend down the grants. We have about 23% left of the grants for January. We're looking to make sure that those get spent down, and the revolving accounts are all in pretty good shape. We had the second payment from Circuit Breaker. So that balance is just slightly negative at 26%. Does anyone have any questions? And then you have the payrolls for January to be voted on.
I move the school committee approve payroll warrants number 28 and number 30 as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion. And Tom reminded me, we don't have to do a roll call when we're all in person. So we can just raise our hands. All in favor? All opposed, none? Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Thank you, and no gifts tonight.
Okay, so I have two comments, actually, I guess I have three comments. So one, Mr. Boudreau, we attempted to make a motion last time when you weren't here for you to be the CPAC liaison.
Yes.
But then you weren't here, and so we decided we would hold off and do that tonight.
Yep.
But I don't know that we have a motion written, so you're gonna have to wing that.
I bet we can pull that. I move that the school committee appoint Mr. Boudreau the CPAC liaison. Special Education Parent Advisory Committee. We wanted to spell
Thank
it
you.
out. Yep.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Oh, I didn't have any discussion. All opposed. Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All right. Thank you for offering to do that. And I know you've already been in touch with.
I have, I'll talk about it during my update.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Great. Okay.
Yep.
Second one, last meeting we had, I don't know if we officially laid it on the table for, we had two calendars that we were planning to vote on a calendar tonight, but we decided to hold off on that because we're still waiting to get a date for when the September primary is scheduled. So there's some discussion about whether that's gonna happen on the 6th or the 20th. And so we decided, instead of having a debate about something that we're not entirely sure of whether the primary is happening or not, we're gonna hold off and have that vote either at our meeting next week, or on, if we have more information about the primary, or hold off until the March 1st meeting. So that is why the calendar is not on the agenda for tonight, because we opted to kind of just hold off on that. And then the last, actually, that is my last comment, because the other comment I'll make when we talk about future dates and agenda items. So with that, I am going to hand it over to you, Doug.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good evening, everybody. I would like to start off just with a few comments. I'd like to thank our high school students for their comments opening the meeting. They've cut down on my updates quite a bit, so I appreciate that. I think that they covered quite a bit of ground. They covered athletics, extracurricular, and academics. So thank you so much for your preparation and for the thorough reporting. We greatly appreciate it. Just a quick update on COVID. Our positive numbers as of today, the tracker still needs to be updated for the end of the week numbers. So the number will increase between now and the end of the week. But as of today, we have 29 positive cases in the district and 28 students in quarantine. Of the 29 positive cases, it's 28 students. One faculty member is positive, so that's the 29th. We are trending in the downward direction. Our numbers are about half of what they were a week ago at this time, which is really a good sign. Vaccination rates, we often get questions about where we are with vaccination rates. So on the Mass DPH website, our numbers continue to look strong. In the 5 to 11-year-old age group, the percentage of fully vaccinated individuals, we're at 60%. That's 5 to 11. From 12 to 15, we're at about 77%. And 16 to 19, we're at 87%, which is a really strong number. So our numbers in the 12 to 15-year-old or the 5 to 11-year-old age group are increasing consistently, and that's really a positive sign. And so, vaccination rates and percentages are things that we look at, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed will ask us to reference when we're thinking about any changes that we might be making in regard to the masking policies that are in place. So that's where we are with that data so far. In regard to the comment about masking, or the questions about the mask mandate, so currently, there are kind of three policies that are keeping masks in place. One is from Mass DPH and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. Next is the town mask mandate. And then after that is the school policy, which mandates masks at this time. And so we're going to be getting an update from DESC this week around how we might apply for a waiver. We're also going to be working with our Board of Health to understand what recommendations they might make that might affect the town and all town buildings. Anthony Choi, who is our health director for both Melrose and Wakefield, will be joining us on next Tuesday, on our meeting on the 15th. So he will talk more about that. He's at a meeting tonight, and this is a point of conversation there as well. So it is also an agenda item for our Policy and Communications Subcommittee. So the three references that I made in regard to Mass DPH and DESE, they're meeting, and we're going to get information from them this week. Board of Health will have input this week, and we'll know more next week. And in our Policy and Communications Subcommittee, we will be discussing this as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
I think it's germane to this. We talked about where the rates were.
Yeah,
So it might be helpful to understand where the rates are, at what level you have the eligibility to apply for, if you
yeah.
don't mind.
So the last, so I don't know if this is going to change, Michael.
Okay, yeah.
But the last information that we got from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, it was before Omicron, right? So it was way before Omicron.
Mm-hmm.
They had made the note that if a school or a level is at 80%, and that's in its entirety, that's faculty, staff, and students,
Mm-hmm.
if they reach the 80% threshold for vaccinations, then the school could create a waiver where they could move to either choice or go without masks. So likely there will be an interim step is what I am anticipating. And so at the high school, we're just at 80% altogether. So we do meet that metric. At middle and elementary, we are not at that level. We're hovering more around 60%. So, if we were to make an application to get a waiver, we likely it would be at the high school first. So that's where we are, and that's what we have anticipated all along.
Have there been one other question, have there been any other towns, I thought I heard of a town, I want to say it was Marblehead, but I'm probably wrong, where the town continued to have the mask mandate, but the school decided to make it optional. Is that true, or have you heard of any of those?
I don't know.
It could have been bad information.
Before I came down to the meeting this evening, I had heard that some towns had applied for a waiver. I haven't heard the outcome. I don't know where the towns are. I wish I had more
That's
information to
okay, and
report,
I'm
but
not
I
sure
don't
my
at this
facts are
time.
correct, so
Yeah,
understood. Yep, okay, thank you.
certainly. Amy?
So the waiver, you can only apply for a waiver if we reach that 80%. It doesn't matter our numbers.
It doesn't matter. When you say our number?
The numbers, so right now we have 29 positive cases, which is, you said is half of what we had last week, and we're trending down. So there's no waiver that can say, okay, we feel we're at a comfortable place, can we apply for a waiver?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, so
I do
even
know-
though sorry to interrupt, so even though we know that people can still get the virus if they're vaccinated, all they care about is the vaccination rate.
That's the metric that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed used months ago.
Right.
That could change.
That's
Okay.
why I
So
asked,
what,
yeah.
Is that what we're waiting for the 28th for?
well, I think the commissioner might have more information ahead of the 28th,
Okay,
right? But we don't know yet. So we should hear that on our weekly update, Amy.
okay. And is that something that we can push for, or is that something?
I think that they're gonna take guidance from Mass DPH.
Okay.
As a resident and a community member, you can always voice your opinion with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. But my sense is that they're gonna take their guidance from Mass DPH in the state. So what we also learned today is the new mayor of Boston, had put out 3 metrics to use before they make any changes with masking in the city of Boston. And they were percentage of the number of ICU beds available, the percentage of cases, positive cases that they had, and so many cases per day. So they're using, I believe, 3 metrics. But it's not in relation to vaccination, as far as I've read. That's, again, that's breaking news just before I came down here.
And that's for the city of Boston,
That's
that's
for the
not for
city
the
of Boston.
schools, right?
That's not schools.
Not for the
Okay.
schools,
Okay,
right? That's for the city of Boston, yeah.
okay. So,
Right.
so we have no date
We do
or
not have a
anything of-
metric, we do not have a
Okay.
date. So I shouldn't say that, we do have a metric of 80%.
Right, that's the current.
That's subject to change, but that's what we had.
Okay,
And so we are anticipating more information and more parties weighing in that need to weigh in, the Department of Ed, Board of Health, and they'll be advising us accordingly, and we'll take it up with policy and communications.
okay. And they would write a new policy that, if it came to that, that would say masks are optional, masks are whatever.
Yeah, so
Okay.
what they would do is they would come back, I would imagine, that we would make a proposal to come back to amend the current policy we had that might be the next interim step. Yeah.
So, so let's just say everything goes smooth and they say, okay, we've decided we're gonna make masks parents' choice. Then that committee has, or subcommittee has to look at the policy, bring it back to us, and then we vote on it? Or is there something that could be done in the interim?
I think that that's exactly what would happen.
Okay, so I mean, I'm just looking for a timeline, because I know this
Yeah.
gentleman had asked about a timeline, so I
Yeah.
just want to see, say that happened tomorrow, then we don't meet again until the 15th, we task them with that, they come back to us in March 1st, say, and then 2 more weeks after that, we would vote on it, and then it would become that's in a perfect world, in my eyes, a perfect world, right?
Right, but I
Okay,
think what you're leaving out of that scenario is you're leaving out the Department of Ed and you're leaving out the Board of Health.
right. No, what I was saying is if they decided tomorrow.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, no,
I'm
if
sorry,
they
gotcha.
decided tomorrow, this is, you
Yes.
can do, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the earliest possible thing we could be looking at is mid-March. In a perfect,
I don't think we have to lay the policy on the table. I would want somebody to
We don't.
clarify. So we could bring the policy to the meeting on the 1st and vote on it.
No, we
Okay.
could call an emergency meeting right away.
And we could do that
Oh.
too. Yes, we could. I mean, the
Okay.
good news is we have a lot of meetings kind of lined up
Yeah.
already that we're meeting next week, and we're meeting the 1st, and we're meeting the 8th, right? So we have a lot of meetings lined up other than the school vacation week, which I don't know that we would meet that week anyway.
Right.
So I think the good news is we have a number of meetings kind of lined up. The key is we need guidance from DESI,
Right.
which, so to be clear, DESI's guidance goes through the end of February. They could lift it ahead of time. We hope that we're gonna get guidance from them ahead of school vacation week, I'd like to hope. If their date currently ends on the 28th. And then, Doug, do you know for the Board of Health in Wakefield,
Yeah.
is there a date on that? Is there a-
They did not, I don't believe that they've put a date on it, or have they put a date on it?
There is, it's March.
March
Oh, it
1?
is.
I want to say 15.
March 15th?
So, but,
Because that is the next layer, right, Doug? Right, we
Yeah.
have
It's
DESI and then
It's
we've
actually
got.
when they meet again to like discuss that as the Board of Health.
so I believe that they're meeting tonight. And so, again.
So that could change.
That could change. And so I think that this is being actively discussed
Yeah.
across the state, and I think, as school administrators, we as much as anyone want to be out of masks, but I think what our goal is to try to do it safely and to try to understand and try to capture. Our job is to represent all of our students and all of our families. And so we've gotten steady feedback where people have let us know, like, we're ready. And so we hear that. We've gotten other feedback that, I had a call this morning where a parent said, medically, my child cannot come out of a mask. And, if other students are unmasked, that could be a problem for us. That's something that we're gonna need to figure out, how to support all of our students. right? So there's gonna be work that we need to do to make that work. And I'm sure we'll get feedback on that. Yeah. I just feel like I have to represent the full
Right.
kind of range of feedback that we're gonna get.
Yeah. No, I just think like the timeline, I think is an important piece of it where we're coming to the end of the year.
Yep.
And I don't have a senior, so I didn't think about prom, things
No,
like
I-
that, graduation. It's stuff that if you're not in that world, you don't see that all the time. So it's, but it's gonna be here before we know it. So it would be nice, to have some sort of, and I know that's kind of, in a perfect scenario, we could say, but it's something at least
Yeah,
to think about,
yeah.
so,
Other questions?
thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I think this is a very timely and appropriate conversation for us to be having. I agree with you that it's being had across the state, right? If we watched or listened to the news yesterday, there was a big controversy in the city of Worcester with the Board of Health voting yesterday 3-2 to lift masks. Fairly controversial as the news reported it. But I think that conversation is appropriate to be driven first by the medical and health professionals. I think our guidance from Board of Health, while I think if we were to get in a conflict with the Board of Health, I'm not quite sure who would win anyways, if we decided to do something that was in opposition to the Board of Health. I'm not quite sure that we want to go into that space, but I certainly think it is time for us to be having this very concrete conversation. Parents are ready, kids are ready, teachers are ready, though there are some that aren't, as you represent, Doug, and I think that's entirely a fair place for you and frankly for all of us to be in that space. I think one concrete thing that we have is an appreciation that the state has driven some deadlines around February 28th as the next decision-making date. Right, with the coming out of the governor's office or DESE, we're going to know something in the next week certainly about what the 28th is to hold. So I think if some news comes out of that, which shows some continuing positive results, I think it would be incumbent on us to act fairly quickly after we get that guidance. But it may be premature without the public health folks sort of chiming in. We don't want to start having a conversation about all the wrong things to talk about. I don't think we need a policy, we need a political fight as to who's in charge. I think it's in the common interest to be in the same place while we can, more or less sort of aggressively pursue, let's get this behind us and let's pursue a new normal. So keeping us in the loop, I appreciate your weekly updates. I appreciate what you send out to the community every Thursday. And I think this conversation belongs right here all the time. And we, as Susie said, we're meeting every week now for the next 2 months, or almost every week.
Yeah, pretty much.
So we'll continue to have those updates.
And we do have Anthony from the Board of Health coming
Next
next
week,
week,
yeah.
which I think that will be very fruitful and interesting
Yeah.
conversation. Him coming off of his meeting tonight, so I think.
And if we get from either the governor or the commissioner of education something with regard to the 28th deadline, we take what the Board of Health is doing and we have a
We might have
much
more
more
of a
public
plan.
conversation next Tuesday. I think we'll be developing a real plan.
Correct. I think we are positioned well,
Yeah.
right? Our numbers are trending in the right direction. One of the other positive aspects is that we're also making a change in contact tracing and testing. And I think I can ask Christine to talk a little bit about testing and where we are with that. We discussed this in our last school committee meeting. We've sent information out to the community on that.
Sure.
Can you give an update on that?
Absolutely. So as you know, all school year, we've had 2 types of testing programs in our schools. We've had test and stay, and we've had symptomatic testing. So test and stay, if you were a close contact, identified as a close contact, you would be able to test for 5 days in school, and as long as you tested negative, you could stay in school. Symptomatic, if you had symptoms that the nurse felt you were exhibiting, you could also test in school. So now the DESE has instituted this new testing program, which will start the end of this week. It's the at-home COVID testing program. I think everyone received the opt-in information, all staff, students, and families. And what this means is if you opt into the program, you will receive the tests, 2 tests, and it's in a kit. And there are 2 tests to test every Monday morning before school. And as long as it's negative, you're welcome to come to school. If you happen to test positive, there is a form to fill out, and that will automatically be sent to central office and will be sent to the nurses, so they can also track, and so we can make sure we have those numbers. So we've had those numbers. We've distributed the tests to the schools this week. I know the schools are working on how to get those into backpacks, into homerooms. But we've had about just under 2,000 families and students sign up. So we'll see how this goes. This is starting this week, so we'll be testing on Monday. And the state has told us they're going to supply tests until April 22nd. So that's as long as we know that this program will go. Does anyone
What
have?
percentage is 2,000?
Yeah, well, we have about 3,500 students, so it's just under, like 2/3.
Thank you.
And it's a rolling, if you didn't opt in, I mean, we did give a deadline, but if you decide, if you change your mind and you want to opt in, you can absolutely do that.
Is the form electronic or a paper copy?
It was emailed, it's a form site form. And you
No,
can
oh,
just-
not that, sorry. If a student tests positive,
It's also an electronic
It is,
form.
okay.
Yep, and just goes right to the school.
central office, okay.
Yeah.
And so that means no more symptomatic testing and test
So
and
we'll
stay?
still do symptomatic
Okay.
testing. If your child or feels sick in school, and the nurse decides to test, we'll still have those tests in
Okay,
school,
but not test and stay?
but not test and stay.
Okay.
So we will continue to report every week, and if there's an outbreak or something significant that, principals and nurses need to keep parents in the loop, they will absolutely do that. If people have questions, we would encourage them, of course, to reach out to nurses and principals about the new program and about what's happening. So what we had said was we would not start the program until people have kits. So kits are going home this week. We're starting the program on Monday. We're sending home 1 kit with 2 tests. So with the 2 tests, we're asking people to test on the 14th and the 28th. So they'll test on Monday morning before they come back after February break, and then they'll test next Monday. So the tests are pretty straightforward. They take 15 minutes. They're rapid antigen tests. So we feel like moving testing, giving parents that choice, we feel like is a really nice step and kind of making testing more available to the community, to 2,000 more people to test once a week. But we also feel like parents being able to make that choice and participate is kind of a protective layer that we're adding in terms of our mitigation strategies. But again, so the principals will be sending home kits with kids, and so each school has a plan. We met this morning with our management and operations team. Tim kind of got kits out to everybody, so he's been he's been terrific. He's been instrumental in making this go, but that's where we are. So, any questions before we shift?
The cadence for people to get another test, assuming the second Monday when they use their last test that same week, they will assumingly get sent home another 2.
Correct.
And it will just stay in that sort of
Yep,
cycle.
That's it.
It'll be a cycle, twice a month, right?
And then provided some student was out of school for whatever reason and it didn't come home at the end of the week, the parent would just reach out to the principal or whatever and just say, hey, by the way, like my student wasn't here, could I just come in and grab?
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. It's complete. We want to be flexible and supportive across the board.
Great.
If someone's away or they, we again, if there's any questions, just call a school nurse. Our nurses have been absolutely brilliant, and they've made all of this, our schools go every day. So yes, so they will continue to do that.
So they'll still be on as of now, the 5-day protocol, if they test positive, 5 days?
Correct.
Okay. And then, just in an instance of a false negative, so if a student tests on a Monday, comes back positive, they don't have symptoms, the parents say, let me take you for a PCR test, it comes back negative, will that overrule?
It would,
And they can come back to school with that?
Correct.
Okay,
as long as they're not symptomatic.
right,
Right.
okay.
So symptomatic,
Yeah,
you know, if you're
that's different.
symptomatic,
Right.
Everything.
if you're symptomatic and even if you test with the flip of that, Amy,
Mm-hmm.
would be if you're symptomatic, you have a fever, and, you know, you test negative, you know, you might also want to have a PCR test.
Stay home, right,
You know,
okay,
but the antigen tests are pretty reliable.
right.
You know, they do have a small percentage of false positives and false negatives, but that percentage is very small. We feel like it's a very good indicator. It's also a very good indicator if you're in day 5 and you might still be contagious on day 6, right? The antigen test is really the best test, better than the PCR test, to see if you're still shedding a viral load. But Anthony can talk about that next week.
Okay, thanks.
So, other questions? Good. I think that this is kind of my favorite time of the meeting. At this point, I'd like to invite our Galvin students and Principal Webb up to tell us a little bit about what's happening at the Galvin.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Megan Webb. I'm the principal at the Galvin. I've only seen many of you via Zoom, so this is exciting to be here in a real place. So thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here. In a minute, I'll introduce these wonderful young women who are here with me. But we wanted to first thank you for taking the time to hear about some bright spots, some good stuff happening out there. I think it's really important. You can even tell with the content of the meeting up to this point that it's important for us to take a minute and appreciate all of the awesome things our kids are doing. I think we've been thinking a lot about what we've asked of our kids over the last few years. And I know we spend a lot of time, as we should, trying to figure out the challenges, trying to make sure all the resources are in place. And sometimes that keeps us from noticing some really amazing leaders emerging, some awesome accomplishments within our building. So it's great that we're able to come here tonight and do this. So these two young women, this is Drea and this is Ala. They're both two of our winners of our 4-Star General Award, which is an award at the Galvin that's given out every trimester, which is our marking periods happen in trimesters there. And out of 1,000 or so students, we select 27. So it's a really high honor for these students. And both Ala and Drea were selected by the team of teachers that run their teams. And I'm just gonna say a little bit about them, but then I'm gonna let them speak because they're really amazing and you wanna hear from them. So Ala Othman is an 8th grader. And when I asked her team why they selected Ala among all of the 8th graders in our school, they described her as caring, compassionate, thoughtful, brilliant, and focused. Ala also, we both spent some formative years in Ohio, so we discovered this as we were talking about tonight. And her family's here with her tonight to support her. And so in a minute, she can talk a bit about her experience at the Galvin so far. And this is Drea Randazzo, who's a 6th grader at our school. And I asked her team about her. And they said she is bright, driven, cheerful, thoughtful, and optimistic. And I would concur with all of that. You walk into a room and you know immediately if Drea is there. She's just a ray of light. So, I don't know, Ala, do you want to go first and say a bit about yourself?
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me. My family moves a lot. Like we've been to different school systems and different. We've seen different like teachers, different personalities, and I think Wakefield is doing an amazing job because this is my favorite so far. I've been to probably like 6 schools, and I really enjoy the Galvin. Not just like academically; it's academically challenging. Like they have honors. And they also have so many extracurricular activities, like clubs, after school stuff, sports, and I really enjoy that.
Thanks, Ala. Andrea?
I also really enjoy Wakefield and all the Wakefield schools. For elementary school, I went to the Walton, and their teachers are amazing, along with the Galvin teachers. I really find everybody's personality there, students and teachers alike. They're all very kind and caring, and the teachers help their students when needed. So I really appreciate that.
And I told both ladies that you guys would probably have questions for them. So they're prepared to answer your questions if you have them. But yeah, just to underscore that in a time that is so, so difficult, both of these girls have just really risen above and beyond, and I know they're going to do amazing things in the future. But yes, if you have questions for them, please.
Yeah, I'll ask you a question. So if you could do anything to change the Galvin, what would you do?
That's a tough question, honestly.
Don't say the principal.
It is budget season, so just keep that in mind.
I'm honestly not sure. I think Galvin's amazing the way it is.
The teachers are doing an amazing job, and especially during COVID with the students, there's really nothing that I'd want to change.
Yeah, totally agree.
I give you a lot of credit. It's hard to be up here.
Yeah.
You should be very proud. I'm sure your family's very proud of both of you.
I'd just be curious from each of you, if you could just, is there something that each of you are like most looking forward to in the coming sort of months in your respective teams? Is there sort of a high point that you're sort of looking forward with enthusiasm about?
I'm looking forward to just staying with my friends and learning more things, definitely. I've always loved to learn.
As an 8th grader, I'm excited for graduation.
Great.
Just a couple questions. Ala and also Ms. Webb. I also spent 2 years in Ohio, so we have that in common at school out there. So my question, Ala, you mentioned you had been to several different schools.
Yeah.
And talked a little bit about some of the differences with the Galvin. Can you maybe expand upon that a little bit? I'm just curious. And then you talked about kind of the extracurriculars, and are you involved in anything? And same with you, Drea, as well.
So I started off in Ohio. We lived there for maybe 8 years, I think it was. But in there, we moved a couple times. My parents are always looking for like better school systems to challenge us, because me and my siblings want to go to Harvard, hopefully. And Ohio was a pretty good experience, but they, like, academically, they had honors, they had AP classes, but I don't ever remember being in after school, like, cross country or any sports. And then we moved to Quincy in Massachusetts. We only stayed there for 6 months. Quincy was also, like, pretty good, but they didn't have, like, the people were good there, but academically and like extracurricular, like it was fine. It wasn't amazing. And then we moved to Salem, and Salem, we stayed in Salem for 2 years, but different schools. The first school, our experience like wasn't that great. They didn't have any honors or AP classes, which was unfortunate, and not only honors and AP, they didn't have like any school. It was like school and then you're done. No way to engage with your classmates or anything after school. And then we are here in Wakefield, and we chose Wakefield specifically because we were like looking at test scores like MCAS, SAT, and other things that would, like, Wakefield was pretty high on the list as one of our options, and we so far enjoy it. My brother's in 9th grade, and my sister goes to Dolbear for 1st grade, and we like it. And she does after school activities after school as a 1st grader, and I do too. I do a lot of clubs and stuff after school.
That's great.
I've only moved once. I lived in Lynn before I came here, and I think I went there for just preschool, I think it was. I went to North Shore Christian. I don't remember much, but I know that it was a fun experience. And then I moved here, and I went to the Woodville for kindergarten. And then 1st grade through 4th grade, I went to the Walton, and now I'm at the Galvin. And I enjoyed all the experiences at the school. They're very amazing.
That's excellent. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your stories, and congratulations on your award. That's awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
One more question. Done yet. You guys aren't getting that easy.
First of all, let me just join in and thank you, three of you, for coming and for sharing the pride in your school. I'm sure part of that, part of the school pride is because of the contributions that both of you make. So that's really impressive. It has to be a two-way street, right? The success of one school has to do entirely with those that get involved and take it to heart. So thank you for being cheerleaders for the Galvin. That's great. So I had kind of a personal question. What is the most challenging part of your week? I was going to say day, but your days are kind of different. So is there something that you find most challenging in sort of getting inspired to make every week the best? What is the most challenging part of your week?
Holly, you want to go first?
I think the most challenging part of my week would probably be I'm not really sure.
There's no right or wrong answer, but it just helps us to inform, what your weeks are like. Is it maybe a class that is the hardest class, or sometimes the hardest one to get inspired about, or?
I like all my classes,
Yeah.
but some teachers don't different teachers have different ways of teaching things, and some classes just aren't as engaging.
Yeah.
Like they don't call on you, and I like it more when it's engaging and they're asking questions and you're doing more partner work other than just they give a lesson and you're done.
Great, that's a great answer. Thank you. Do you have a thought?
One of the classes that is the hardest part of my week or my day is math class. It's pretty challenging for me, but I work with my friends and they help me through it. So that's the hardest part of my week or day.
That's awesome. That's great. Again, thank you all very much for sharing.
If you could pick one special, your specials like STEM, art, to have every day, what would it be?
For me, it would be gym. I
Gym?
really like my gym teacher and just the things we do. We've done lacrosse, we've done volleyball, we've done soccer. I get to try all the sports.
So gym every day?
Yeah.
Same here. I would definitely do gym
Oh,
every
really?
day.
Okay.
Since we just started the new specialists, so far we've been doing scooter activities, which have been really fun and super interactive as gym always is. So I would definitely choose gym to have every day.
Okay. Thank you.
So do you think maybe Ms. Morrow and I could come over and we could have lunch in the next couple of weeks to maybe continue this conversation? You might be able to invite some classmates.
Yeah.
And we can continue this. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely.
That would be great. And we're so proud of you. It is terrific to have you join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
So lunch on you, Doug.
Can I tell you, it would be an absolute pleasure, right, to have.
Playing the basketball.
Yeah. I think that there's, I love that. Jim, right? She wants to go to Harvard and Jim. And just a reminder for the committee and anyone watching, the students that spoke are in 6th grade and 8th grade, right? So 6th and 8th, right? So impressive young women. So very proud of them. I'm really pleased that we are adding this dimension to our meetings. I think it keeps our meetings kind of grounded, and it reminds us why we're committed to this work, right, together. So I really appreciate the students being here. So just moving along, I think at this point, next up we have the health curriculum update. So we're going to have to make a slide deck change.
Yep, so we shared that, and then we have
There
a
you go.
couple people on Zoom.
Ian, I think joining us from Zoom, we should have Brendan and Craig Beckier.
And Jason Lawrence and Melissa Tarnas and Chris Giantasio.
Terrific. There we
Karen,
go.
do you want me to start off?
Perfect.
Hey, Brendan, we're still missing Chris.
Okay. I think he's jumping on right now.
Okay, we'll wait.
Do you want to you think we can get started,
Wanna get
Karen?
started?
While Chris is signing on?
Sure. Yeah, so we can get started. We'll do introductions, and then Chris Giantasio from the high school is going to be joining us as well. We wanted to start. Brendan Kent is here, who's our Director of Health and Wellness. So he and I worked together just to kind of think about what we wanted to present tonight to you. So we set up the presentation as more of an overview of what's happening in health curriculum across the district. And then we thought we would open up to a Q&A at the end. So hopefully that covers the interest of the committee. I know you wanted to learn more about what's being taught in different grade levels. And we're so lucky tonight to have you hear most of the information directly from our health teachers. So we can just start and do some introductions. Craig, do you want to start?
Hi, everybody. I'm going to be talking a little bit about health education at the elementary level, what it kind of looks like at the elementary level.
Great, thanks, Craig. That's Craig back here. And Melissa, you want to jump in?
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Tarnas. I'm up at the Galvin teaching middle school health, 5th grade, 6th grade. I'm sorry, 5th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade health.
Thanks, Melissa. And Jason.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Lawrence. I'm also at the Galvin health teacher. I teach grades 5, 7, and 8.
Great, thank you. All right, so this first slide, and then, like I said, Chris will be joining us to talk about the high school. This first slide, we just wanted to map out how the presentation is going to go. Brendan's going to start and just talk a little bit about the history of our health curriculum and what that resource selection looked like, how the units were prioritized at every level, and then just overall class time that we have across the district. We do have, some limitations around the amount of health classes that we have at each grade level, so that really kind of drove just to how many units we could prioritize across the district. So Brendan's going to get into that a little bit. And then, like I said, each of the health teachers are going to speak to their level. They're going to do a general overview and then go through the scope and sequence of the curriculum at each level in terms of of what is covered. So we can go to the next slide. Okay, Brendan, can I pass it over to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say thanks to our health teachers that are on the call tonight. I've been working with all of them for many years now, 7 years in total. Melissa, Craig, Jay, Chris, and so they know where kind of our health curriculum was at when we all first started working together and where we are now. And I'm just so proud of the accomplishments and the progress we've made in the past 7 years. So when I first started here 7 years ago, I think we were only teaching health in 3 grade levels. We didn't have any curriculum. It was a homemade curriculum. Basically there was no through line throughout the district. And so over the years, we've expanded from 3 grade levels to now we teach 9 grade levels. So we teach every grade, kindergarten through 10th grade, with the exception of 6th grade. I know that's a little sore subject with Melissa. We had it in 6th grade a couple years ago and it got taken away. And I also, another thing I'm really proud of this group for is we've done all that without adding anything to the budget for the Wakefield Public Schools. So we haven't added any staff members. We've basically just asked some of our teachers to kind of do a little more with what they have. In fact, we actually lost one staff position in our department. So it's pretty amazing, the work that they've done over the past 7 years. When trying to choose first of all, how we got health into the elementary was we worked with our phys ed teachers. So Craig Becker is on the call. He's a phys ed teacher at the elementary level. Our phys ed teachers are the ones that are teaching phys ed down at the elementary, and we just basically worked it into their schedule, and so that they're doing an amazing job. When choosing what curriculum to use, we basically took an entire year to assess what we needed as a district, what we felt our top priorities were. We kind of did a needs assessment. We looked at our YRBS data. Catherine Digna from the Wakefield town of Wakefield Health Department was amazing. She was a great asset for us, as well as Liz Parsons, another Wakefield parent. They were terrific. They were a great help. We looked at a bunch of different curriculum options. In the end, we did choose the Michigan model because it had a K through 12 curriculum. So right here, I'm holding up the second grade curriculum. They have a curriculum for every grade level, and it builds off of itself. And it's an evidence-based curriculum, and it was also evidence-based, very strong on the health priorities that we felt were most important, which at the time was mental health, suicide prevention, and social emotional learning, as well as substance abuse. So when you think of health education, there's a lot of different health topics. Social emotional learning, substance abuse, alcohol prevention, tobacco prevention, drugs, substance abuse prevention, bullying prevention, violence prevention, childhood obesity, diabetes, fitness, exercise, nutrition, mental health. It goes on and on and on. What we have available for lessons is at the elementary level, the kids get 15 lessons a year. At the middle school level, we get about 40 lessons a year. And then at the high school level, we have about 28 lessons a year. So unfortunately, we can't cover everything that we would love to. So we prioritize what's most important for us. And kind of the through line here in Wakefield that we teach all the way kindergarten through 10th grade is social emotional learning. Craig will talk a little bit about that at the elementary level. That's basically what we teach at the elementary level. And then when we get into the high school and middle school levels, we also spend a lot of time on substance abuse prevention, as well as a few other health topics. I'll let Jason, Melissa, and Chris talk about that.
Great.
So that's kind of how we came about using the Michigan model, a little history of our department and where we're at now. And like I said, I can't say enough good things about our teachers. I'm super proud of the work they've put in over the past 7 years.
Great. Thanks,
So,
Brendan.
I guess we can jump to the next slide,
Yep.
and I'll pass it off to Craig, and he can talk a little bit about the elementary curriculum.
Perfect. All right.
Hi,
Craig,
everybody.
you're all set.
So, oops, sorry.
Oh, no.
So-
Sorry. I was just telling you you're all set. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Craig.
Okay. Yeah, so I'll kind of run us through the elementary level. So as Brendan was saying, we have around 15 lessons at each school. So Greenwood and Walton meet once a week for half the year. Wolfville and Dover meet a quarter of the year. We have 40-minute classes. All our lessons focus on social emotional learning. So we're kind of teaching them the basic skills of interacting with each other, problem-solving skills, conflict resolution, dealing with strong feelings. And we'll kind of see the layout in the next slide coming up here. So here's kind of the breakdown of it. So we, especially with the younger kids, we explain what courtesy is, different ways to treat people with courtesy, who we should treat with courtesy, how to deal with strong feelings, so ways to settle down, just the basics of feeling different kinds of emotions, showing each other respect and appreciation, who we should show appreciation to and respect to, so friends, people in the building, outside the classroom, helping each other, so the importance of helping out other people in different ways we can help each other. We teach the basic listening skills, the importance of listening, basic listening skills. We talk about 3 Ds for telling, which kind of lead into some bullying topics and when it's important to tell an adult if something's dangerous, destructive, disturbing, you need to report it to adults, and different problem-solving skills that they use.
Great. Thanks, Craig. Do you want to ask questions by level, or do you want to save questions for the end? Just save them for the end?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
save for the end.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Craig. We'll move on to middle school. All right. Jason and Melissa, I'm not sure how you split up the slide, so I'll defer to you.
I'll go first.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. So for the Galvin, what we do currently is we have grades 5, 7, and 8 health, and they're half-year courses. They meet every other day. So it's just first semester, which approximately is between 40, 45 classes, what Brendan said before. And I would say about 2017, 2018 is when we decided to implement sixth grade health, and it only lasted for 1 year. I think that's around the time we purchased the Michigan model for that grade. And it went really well. I'm not sure what happened for the next couple of years, but sixth grade health was then taken out. So it was currently 5, 7, and 8 for a couple of years after that. And then the summer going, I would say last summer, before we started our hybrid model, I was called over the summer and asked to implement a sixth grade health class for the hybrid and for remote teaching. So it was about trimesters. And so the first half of the year, I got to do 30 classes of sixth grade health with each team. So now this year going into it, we're back to 5th, 7th, and 8th grade health semesters. And so I'm going to talk about the 5th grade health curriculum next. So what we do is we start the year with just talking about all the components of health, and we focus on their physical health, mental health, emotional health, and their social health. So we just give an introduction to that for 5th grade and get introduced to all of them. And then we break down our topics using the Michigan model and other materials that we've used throughout the years. And we break it down by components of health. So we'll talk about positive self-esteem and talking about mental and emotional health. And we use communication skills so that they can communicate to others and how to boost up their self-esteem and talking about the importance of overall health. And then we talk about coping with strong emotions. And I think this really ties into what Craig was saying when he uses the Michigan model down to elementary. We build off of that with this as well. So it's really helpful. And we talk about healthy ways to cope with their emotions and dealing with all types of emotions. We also do a little bit of nutrition. That's also Michigan model based. We introduce My Plate and how to build healthy meals, and we tie it into their physical and also mental and emotional health as well. We do a unit on anti-bullying, which also uses Michigan model as well. We talk about the types of bullying and how to advocate at the Galvin and making a Galvin a safe place for others and how to treat others. So that also ties into what Craig was saying at the elementary. We talk about healthy relationships, which talks about their social health. And we talk about specifically dealing with peer pressure. And talking about what healthy friendships are, what a true friend is, what a false friend is, and how to identify those characteristics and traits. And when we talk about peer pressure with healthy relationships, we also kind of segue into our drug prevention unit. And this is really the first year that we did a full unit for our drug prevention with 5th grade. In the past, we hadn't. And Jason and I worked on this right before the pandemic started. And so we were able to really implement it this year. And we talk about tobacco, nicotine, and vaping. And we also implement Michigan model refusal skills into it. So what they're comfortable saying to a friend or someone if they were peer pressuring them to try any of these substances. So it's an introduction to them. We also do a basic first aid and safety unit with them. Just learning some basic skills of CPR, Heimlich maneuver, how to call 911, what to do in emergency situations, just very, very basic skills. And then the last unit we talk about is personal hygiene, and we watch the puberty video with them. And so that really sums up those 45 classes with them. It's a lot of information for them, but I think we do a really good job with that. We've worked really hard on that. So
thanks,
Melissa.
Melissa.
That's for 5th grade. I think. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, thanks, Melissa. Are you ready to go to 7th grade?
Yeah. I
Okay.
think so. Jason, you ready?
Right.
Yeah, I can take over 7th grade. Thank you, Melissa. So 7th grade, we try to build off what we completed in 5th grade with the students. And obviously we do have that little bit of a gap year. So we do have some review and try to tie everything back in together. So 7th grade, we start to cover a little bit more in depth, a lot of the substance abuse with a lot of social emotional skills tied into the entire curriculum that we use. We start off with setting personal health goals, trying to get the students to identify why it's important to set goals for themselves when it comes to their health, and how to write a appropriate goal, a realistic goal, a measurable goal, so that we can achieve our goals when it comes to our health. We take a really big focus on stress management, specifically in the 7th grade, how to cope with stress, stress busters, how to relieve stress, and what are healthy ways for us to deal with these different emotions that we get when we go in middle school and throughout life. It's a very interesting unit that the kids love, and we have them kind of create their own stress buster activities that they lead the class in. And then we kind of segue into our bigger kind of substance abuse prevention units. So we focus on tobacco, a lot on vaping, currently with the upticks and the trends that are going on, alcohol and marijuana. And we focus on that. We talk a lot about peer pressure and refusal skills. How does somebody refuse? What are ways to kind of deal with that peer pressure when we get it? Overall decision making, what happens in our brain when we have to make a decision? And then what are those influences, and how do we advocate for ourselves when we're in that situation, and how do we say no to these pressures that we face in middle school, high school, and beyond? We started a little bit of our nutrition unit. We start to focus on reliable resources and what nutrients are, and how to actually read the food labels that we're looking at and what we're actually putting into our body. We do a little bit on eating disorders. It's been a very interesting unit, something that the kids really grasped into. I don't think was a really big thing on a lot of radars until we started to implement this a couple of years ago, and the kids seem to really resonate with it. But what the warning signs are, what the treatments are, how to find help, how to help a friend if we see some of these red flags that are going on. We have our suicide prevention. We work hand in hand with the Samaritans organization. They come in and give a speech on suicide prevention, how to help friends, how to help ourselves if we're kind of going through some of those thoughts or anything surrounding that topic. And lastly, we go through the human growth and development from a strictly biological standpoint, just the stages of development, like what happens, changes through puberty, and the reproductive system from a biological standpoint in that sense. So overall, 7th grade is a very rewarding year when it comes to health. And that kind of segues us right into our 8th grade. You don't mind flipping the slide. So 8th grade, we really kind of take everything that they've encompassed from 5, 7 in their health career, and we try to tie everything in together, as well as introduce some new topics. Go through a little bit of self-reflection, a little bit of the healthy goals that we talked about beforehand. And then we talk a little bit about empathy and leadership, and what it means to be a leader, especially as the 8th graders in the Galvin Middle School. How do they see themselves as leaders? What does it mean to have empathy for other people? And compassion, and how does that relate to our overall well-being? Then we do a pretty big unit on healthy and unhealthy relationships. So we talk about safe dating, things like consent, warning signs of abusive relationships, domestic abuse. What are those red flags? What do they look like? How do I identify if I'm in an unhealthy relationship or somebody I know is in an unhealthy relationship? And then where to go to get help if we are in those situations, local and national resources. We have a respond presentation that comes in and talks to our kids after we give our unit. We work hand in hand with the WAAB. They actually came in this year, and we had our students create an advocacy campaign on healthy relationships and dating abuse. And they came in and judged the kids' posters and gave out awards and pictures in the paper for 2 of the kids that did a really great job, and they thought were the best ones. Kind of segueing after that, we talk into about sexual harassment, what it looks like, what it is, the different forms that it can take, from physical to verbal to digital, to how to report it, to how to advocate for yourself for someone to stop, and what happens if they don't stop. How do we get help for those type of things? That's another unit that we think is really important for the 8th grade, and they really like to get into it, and they really like to interact with that unit as well. And then through the 8th grade, so for substance abuse, we focus a little bit more on the opioid side of it, stimulants and depressants, but more importantly, opioids and prescription drugs and prescription drug misuse. What are the stages of addiction, and how do they affect us? We do a lot on 5th and 7th with vaping and tobacco use and marijuana use. And this is kind of sometimes like first introduction of what opioids are and what are prescription drugs and what is the difference that somebody's using them or misusing them. It's a very interesting topic. Lastly, we focus on conflicts, what they are, how to get healthy resolutions. We tie back in nutrition, one of my favorite units, and we talk about how do we advocate, but more importantly, how do I identify real foods, processed foods, and what are we actually putting into our system. And then lastly, we kind of just tie everything together. So from the 5th grade to the 7th grade to the 8th grade, how can we get all this information that we learned over these last 3 years and actually apply it to our life as we move forward to high school, to college, to the rest of our life. So overall, it's very rewarding, and Melissa has done a great job, and as well as Brendan and everybody else kind of putting this together for our kids. So
Great.
thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Chris, are you ready to jump in for the high school?
I am, yes.
Great. I think you're all set.
So in
Yep.
the high school, we have 9th and 10th grade at the high school. When I entered the high school, I think Brendan already mentioned this, we always had just grade 9. We added grade 10 in 2018, which is a pretty big accomplishment. We doubled our courses offered and held. So we have half year classes. We meet 2 days out of 6. We have about 28 classes per cycle. So we use the YRBS, like Brendan mentioned, to analyze, determine topic areas that we focus on. Since we have limited classes, we really try to pick and choose what areas are going to be best that given year for the students. So grade 9, we have positive, negative influences, communication skills, goal setting and decision making. Grade 10, mental and emotional health, alcohol abuse, teen binge drinking, nutrition, health and responsible relationships. A lot of what we do, just like the middle school, how they build off of what's done in the elementary, we do the same. We collaborate with the middle school teachers. It's the same Michigan model curriculum, and we have a lot of similar topics, but we just we advance where necessary, and we hit back on the important areas. So overall, we're really happy with the amount that we have. We do have Respond. They're actually coming in this week. The Respond comes in to give presentations to our students. We have the youth action team. So we try to utilize all the available resources in the community. And then one of the things that we're working on for next year is to add electives to both health and wellness at the high school. So that's something that we're looking forward to continuing.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, if you guys can just kind of stay on standby. At this point, we can open up to questions. Yep, Mike?
Why no grade 6?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, Brendan, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, that's a sore subject. I wouldn't bring that up with Melissa. So, one of our goals has kind of been to fill in the gaps. Like I said, when I first came here, I think we just had 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and then we expanded to kindergarten and 1st grade, and then we got 2nd grade and 3rd grade, and eventually, at one point in time, we had K to 10, and the middle school a few years back rearranged their course offerings, their specialty classes. I think they added some additional foreign language classes, and you know how scheduling works. You add something, you get to take something out, and unfortunately, health education got taken out of the 6th grade. So we've been working with administration down there to try to figure out a way to get it back in, but that's basically what happened a few years ago. Was some extra classes got added in to the kids' schedules, and health got taken out.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I know this was more of a health overview, but could someone speak to the gym schedule and how it works at each level?
Brendan, you want to jump in on that, on the PE schedule at every level?
Oh, Craig, you want to talk about the elementary schedule? Craig's actually one of our phys ed teachers.
Yeah,
so.
Mr. B.
Yeah, so at the elementary level, we see him for PE twice a week, and then every teacher once a week has a common planning time. So that's when we see grades K through 2. So we see them for health during the common planning time. And then it rotates. So you rotate classes, you see at the planning time. And then for 3rd and 4th grade, we take out of our PE time to cover the SEL lessons. So we work those in throughout the PE time throughout the year.
Thank you. Brendan, do you want to speak to Galvin PE?
Yeah,
And then
Galvin
quick-
PD, they meet all grade levels. It was a big win a few years ago. I believe they meet, Melissa and Jay, I know it's the same as you guys, 4? Is it 4 out of, Melissa?
I believe they meet every other day.
Every
For
other day.
fifth and sixth grade, I think is all year. And I think seventh and eighth grade is half year unless it has to do with a music appreciation or depending on what type of instrument they're in. Yeah.
Yeah, so some kids in the 7th and 8th grade can get the full year. If some kids that are in music, it doesn't fit in, so they only get the half a year.
Correct.
And Chris is actually one of our high school phys ed teachers, so.
Yeah, I can speak on the phys ed for the high school. So we meet all grades 9 through 12. Grades 9 and 10, it's the same schedule as the health, just flip-flop. So it's 2 days out of 6 for half a year, so 28 classes. Grades 9 and 10, when they have health in the fall, they'll have PE in the spring, and vice versa. Grades 11 and 12 are together. And again, it's a half-year class, so they meet 2 days out of 6. 9 and 10 together, it's Project Adventure and Personal Fitness. And Wellness 2, which is grades 11 and 12, is more lifetime activities, leisure activities. So, and like I said earlier, we are working on adding some electives for next year.
Thank you. Any other questions? Del?
Thanks. So first, to thank you all very much for preparing, preparing for tonight's presentation and being able to make us appreciate a little bit more exactly the work that's been going on and the work that you're doing is so critically important. The health and wellness and social emotional piece that's really driving lots of conflict today. So thank you so much for all of that work. A couple of questions. And it really would apply to anyone or everyone that wants to answer. It sort of dawned on me when I was paying attention to and watching the slides around grade 5 sequencing, but it's probably a larger question is, so what are assessments like, and how do we know a success? How do we know where the students are within these contexts?
So I can jump in there. So the Michigan model has built-in assessments for each unit. They have pre-test and post-test. I know, like at the elementary level, Craig, for example, has used some of those assessments and collected the data. It's actually pretty cool to look at. At the middle school and high school level, I don't want to speak for Melissa, Jay, and Chris, but I know in addition to the Michigan model assessments, they also have some assessments that they've created and taken from different resources as well. But like I said, the Michigan model has pre and post for basically every single unit. Melissa and Jay or Chris, do you want to add anything to that? Or Craig, I mean, that basically covers everything for you, right?
Yeah, we have the pre and post assessments already. So first day we give the pre-test, last day we give the post, and then we collect the information and all 4 of us compare where our data's at, see where the kids are at.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. For one of their, the teachers every year have to do professional practice goals. And for one of their goals a few years ago, the 4 elementary teachers all focused on getting their data in on a Google Drive together, so you could actually look at the data every grade level for every elementary school on their SEL pre and post lessons. It was pretty cool. You could see the progress of the kids. But again, Michigan model comes with the assessments. Melissa, Jay, and Chris, I know, have also created additional assessments as well.
So
I just
go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry, no, please.
No,
go ahead.
I was just going to say. So mostly all of our units are tied to a health standard and a health skill, similar to like advocacy, decision making, communication, and we use a lot of assessments to see if those kids can portray that skill. So can they advocate for themselves, whether it's a poster or creating a public service announcement, or can they go through the decision making process and understand what it means to make a decision? So we do have a lot of skills when it comes to health that tie into our standards that we try to portray and make sure the kids can kind of portray those skills at the end of each unit.
Yeah, and just to add on with that, what Jason was saying, in addition to the pre and post test, we're project based. So at the end of each unit, the students will produce a project to demonstrate that they understand the skill, that they can actually apply the skill and the knowledge that they've learned throughout the unit. So for every unit, it's something different, like Jason was saying, whether it's a public service announcement, whether it's a video, whether it's a poster, well, they all look different for everyone.
Right. The reason that prompted my question is that these type of lessons and these type of conversations that you are prompting don't necessarily lend themselves to an obvious assessment, right? So it's great to hear that they're project based. Great to hear that there's a vehicle by which the kids can express themselves in a creative way or in an articulate way that isn't just driven by a more common assessment. So, and I bet the kids actually appreciate that, probably, right? Because it's a very different type of assessment than they're getting in some of the other classes, and then they're in some of their academic study, right?
Yeah, I agree with that because you can see a lot of creativity come out, and we also give them options too. So it's not just one way saying that, oh, you have to do a poster or you have to do it this way. For most of the projects that we do give them, we say you pick what's best to demonstrate how your understanding of the skill and the knowledge of this. So we see a lot of creativity in our class. It's great.
So I'm sorry. Nope. Maybe a question for anyone or everyone. This is sort of opinion based on how you think progress is being made on some of the more sensitive subjects with regard to conflicts that kids are facing in the real world that they're bringing with them to school every day, and some of the sensitive stuff. So a question that comes to mind around some of the sensitive topics, harassment, for example, sexual conduct, social media, healthy relationships, those type of things that I'm calling that very, very, umbrella-like, sensitive topics. But is there a sense, are they dealt with a sense of maturity? Are kids appreciating that? Is some of that, especially in the difficulties of the world around them? Let's talk about social media in a very, very concrete way. Can you speak to some of those experiences that you may have had with some of the students? Anyone?
Sure. Sure.
Go, Melissa.
Bueller? Bueller?
Is my mic on?
It's so hard with Zoom. Do you want to go Melissa, then Jason? I think is that, Melissa, you want to go first, then Jason, and then Brendan?
Sure.
Okay.
At the beginning of our time meeting with them, we definitely establish a really good rapport with the class. We do a lot of introduction activities that prepares them for all of the information that could be potentially sensitive to them, for one. Also, two, we do communicate to parents to give at home a heads up that there could be a potentially sensitive topic that we are talking about. I also notify any student support staff and counselors, so they always have the option to seek out help. They have a lot of support for any subjects that could be potentially sensitive to them, or could trigger any type of emotion or feelings. And I tell them that sometimes, this may happen. We may not even realize that, this had triggered something. So just being understanding of that and allowing them to process it, seek help if they need it, and just support them in any way we can. And also making sure that throughout the lesson that we're observing, making sure that we're knowing that or looking for anything that's kind of out of the ordinary with our students. So we don't just jump into those sensitive topics right away or anything that could be potentially sensitive. We like to get to know our students first, kind of understand the class, get a gauge, and then handle maybe each lesson, even class by class sometimes, depending on our group. So I don't know if Jason wants to add on to that or anything I missed.
You stole my thunder.
Sorry.
But no, I think, and just kind of to the question, it's from a maturity standpoint, I see that a lot of our lessons regarding what we would say would be a sensitive topic that these kids do an amazing job at. I think as you look at it and you look at it from the curriculum, you're like, how are these going to go? And since I started teaching health in the building that we're at, the kids are extremely accepting of everything and everything that we bring to them, which is great. It really is, and they're very mature when it comes to this topic, because I think that they want to learn it, because they're the ones dealing with it in that sense on a day-to-day basis a lot of times, and they're very interested in the topic and what everything kind of entails. But they're definitely the maturity level from a middle school standpoint, I would say, is something to kind of be proud of for what we have inside the Galvin. And I can't speak for the high school, but what we've dealt with has been very very fun to deal with.
I want to add on to that, that now that I had the chance to teach 5th grade, and then last year I had the opportunity to teach 30 6th grade classes, I now have them as 7th graders. And I think setting that that foundation from 5th grade, 6th grade, and 7th grade, when we get into the more like we say, tough topics or sensitive topics or difficult topics, that it really has set the groundwork for, like Jason was saying, that maturity level and just that understanding of the expectations for our classes, especially around these topics, and for each other as well. So I think, both of us as a health department, we do a really good job to try to set that groundwork for our students to make sure they feel comfortable in our classes.
I just want to jump in just really quick with a personal kind of endorsement. I can remember a couple of years ago, Mr. Lawrence, you had one of my children, and you guys were talking about opioid abuse, and that you gently reminded the kids, like, hey, there are kids in this classroom who may be dealing with this at home personally. Let's all remember that. And it really, really hit home for my kids. And I can remember my son came home and said, we were talking about this, and Mr. Lawrence kind of reminded me, reminded us of this. And a lot of it has to do with the way that you guys decide to handle that, right? And coming from a place of sympathy and empathy, which you talk about as, one of the things that is kind of in the curriculum. I think you do a really nice job with that, and it challenges the kids to kind of rise to the occasion also, to act mature and to remember, like, hey, this kid that I'm sitting next to may have this going on at home. Like, let's be respectful of that. So just a kind of a personal story of knowing kind of how you guys teach that and how you've handled that, and how I know my children have kind of internalized the way that you guys have handled that. You do a really nice job.
Thank you.
Just two quick questions. One of the first is, certainly professionally and even within our own committee, we've talked a lot about the impact of technology, social media, on some of the topics that you cover. Showing respect, healthy relationships, those sorts of things. I'm curious how that's maybe addressed in the work that you do, if it is addressed, because I think it's becoming increasingly having a significant impact on young people's health of all sorts.
So I just want to give credit to the teachers. Part of my job is to go around and observe them. And I've observed them multiple times. Thank you. I'm sorry, we just finished a basketball game. Thank you. Officials are just saying goodbye. Yeah, thank you. Double duty right now. But anyways, as I was saying, I was just about to talk about the advancements, kind of what you were mentioning, Kevin. The advancements in technology, they're evolving so quickly that the curriculum materials are often outdated, unfortunately, because a lot of times we're going off, curriculum from 5 years ago, but it doesn't include technology, TikTok, and Instagram that the kids are currently on. And I've observed our teachers multiple times, Melissa, Jason, Chris, modify their curriculum to include what the kids are actually using right now, what the kids are actually experiencing. And so I just want to give kudos to them. They're taking the curriculum and they're modifying it to make it relevant to what the kids are actually experiencing in their daily lives. And then even at the elementary level, it's a little different, but Craig, I've experienced him multiple times teach PE classes, and he'll use things from his health classes in PE class. Like if a kid's getting an argument over a score of a game they're playing, Craig will say, okay, what did we use in health class? How to, resolve this conflict? And the kids will think back to what they learned in health. And in terms of answering your question, they do a great job of modifying it and adapting it to how they can utilize it in their real life. So sorry, that was a little long-winded.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that's obviously, going to increasingly change and be really important to stay on top of, as we all know. My second question and last question, during the high school overview, you talked a little bit about how surveys can be analyzed to determine topic areas. I'm curious if there are any examples of something that you saw, a trend, an outcome of the surveys that changed or added a topic, or that kind of informed what the class was going to cover.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned it earlier when I was talking. The teachers have to create professional practice goals and student learning goals every year, and usually we use the YRBS as a great source of data for us to create goals for. And just this past year, we worked with our high school health teachers. They looked at the YRBS, our most recent one, and students, because of COVID. Their anxiety levels are just through the roof, and stress levels, and so they've actually kind of modified what they're teaching with the kids in class to support them with that, and they created their goals around that data to try to help improve their skills in those areas to help them with deal with their anxiety and stress. So our curriculum is I always say it's not a set in stone curriculum. It's a living and breathing curriculum that we change based on what the student data is. And so that's just one example of how our teachers have kind of modified some lessons. And a great example is this year they teamed up with our student support services. So they've gotten Suzanne Burns and Andrea Keogh, our student support staff at the high school, to come into classes and just kind of introduce themselves, talk about what resources they have available to them at the high school, because I think a lot of kids aren't always aware of the resources they have there. So that's just an example of kind of how our teachers have adapted to our students' needs.
Great, thank you.
I was just going to ask, and hi, this is Stephen, and I think this question is for sort of everybody, and to go back to what you were talking about, Brendan, sort of the flexibility of the curriculum. I'm just curious, it seems like you're all comfortable with the Michigan model. I'd just like to know if it does allow you that flexibility to sort of especially now, this sort of the time that we find ourselves in, the challenges with our kids sort of having less than normal school years across the past couple of years. If you've had that ability to sort of move with where you see their emotional levels, the supports that are needed, where you think that the gaps that you're finding, that you can fill those gaps, and that the curriculum sort of gives you those tools. I'd just be interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Michigan model, it's called the Michigan model because it was developed by the state of Michigan, collaboration between the Michigan Department of Education and Department of Public Health. And one of the problems they were having when they first created it was they didn't have health teachers in all their schools. So they actually developed the curriculum so that it can be taught by any teacher, whether you're just a classroom teacher and you don't have a health education background. So it actually comes with a script, which is great for our elementary phys ed teachers that don't necessarily have a background in health education. When we first introduced it a few years back, we had a trainer come out and train all of our teachers on it. And one of the big components that she talked about was the fact that our more experienced health teachers, like for example, I'm going to pick on Melissa. Melissa's a very experienced health education teacher. She wanted them to have the freedom to make modifications to the curriculum, to kind of use it as a foundation, but to almost as a launching pad to bring more to the classroom based on what you feel your students need. And I think our teachers have done, I don't know if Melissa or Jay, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but if you want to talk about examples of that, but I've seen them do that multiple times.
Yeah, we had, I think her name was Pat, came in from the Michigan model and helped us, and she worked on just breaking down how the actual curriculum was set up. And so, like Brendan said, there is a scripted part of it, but then the other section of it is kind of bigger questions. And so you can kind of take those questions or those activities and go in a different direction with them if you want. They have like extended activities or additional work on top of the script that's already there. So it didn't necessarily say, oh, if you were doing the script, you had to do this lesson, but if you wanted an extension activity, here's some additional options that you could do with this that went along with it. And we've actually taken those and utilized them in the classes as well. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It just depends on the actual class or maybe even the curriculum or how many days we have and other things that we're doing. So.
Great. Sort of staying on that same sort of flexibility line is, how does the curriculum deal with transition grades? Like, how do you see the bridge between the health curriculum in 4th grade to 5th grade, in 8th grade to 9th grade? I know, that's a turbulent time in the students' lives. What sort of tools do you think it's a clear line following through?
Go ahead, Melissa.
Okay. As the common the common language that's used throughout the curriculum is one big aspect of it. So I know some things that Craig has used at the elementary level, it continues on into the 5th grade curriculum as well. So some of the kids have said, oh yeah, I recognize that language, and then we can extend on top of that language, like they learn more off of what Craig has taught. So.
Yeah, I was just along the same lines. I was just going to say a major reason why we chose the Michigan models because it offered that K to 12 kind of through line, whereas other curriculum options, they just had a high school curriculum. So maybe, we would have, an alternative that we would have had to come up with was purchase a high school curriculum, purchase a different middle school curriculum, purchase a different elementary curriculum, which would not have had kind of that same common language. The Michigan model, it has a kindergarten curriculum, 1st grade, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, all the way up, and it uses common language. It just builds off the lessons. The lessons in 1st grade build off the kindergarten lessons, and so on and so on. So that way you don't really have those big gaps between elementary and middle school and high school.
That's great. And I think last question is, I noticed that we currently, the curriculum stops at 10th, and that leaves 11th and 12th, but then there was also talk about electives. Am I to sort of infer that might be a way to bridge that gap?
Yeah, absolutely. So Chris and I and Amy McLeod's on deck, waiting to present next. We've worked a lot with coming up with different electives opportunities for the kids. So that's definitely something we're still working on. Part of it is the kids' schedules are so jam-packed at the high school level. Finding time in the kids' schedules is sometimes a little difficult. So I don't know if, Chris, you want to add anything to that?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think it's a good opportunity for us. It's something we've been building towards the past couple of years. And by kind of tweaking some of the wellness classes, we're opening up some room for the teacher schedules to allow more options for students. So it's something that I think is needed, and I think we, as a group, we're going to try to take advantage of the time, and hopefully put out some good classes that students can have opportunities to take all the way up until 12th grade.
I think a big challenge is just the kids' schedules, and a lot of kids are overloaded as it is, and they just don't have the room in their schedules. But we're working on that and trying to come up with a game plan.
Thank you, and just thank you again for everyone taking the time to put the presentation together. It's been great.
So I did have one final
Okay.
question, sorry.
I have one after your final.
Oh, Amy did too. Oh my goodness.
Brendan, is there plans, and maybe Chris, for the high school curriculum, it didn't feel like there was a lot, or anything really kind of mentioned around consent and respecting women in particular, right? The respecting girls and not objectifying them. Is there discussion about kind of modifying or expanding or looking at the curriculum a little bit more to include some additional content around that? I'm guessing it's probably in there to some degree, but we've been asked, I'm sure many of us have been asked some questions about kind of where does that fit? And I did see consent kind of early on in middle school somewhere, and I suspect that kind of goes along with healthy dating relationships and such. But I think we have work to do to continue that conversation around consent and really about respecting women. And do we feel like that we're equipped to do that? Can we bring outside folks in to talk about it? So Brendan, I think it's probably more of a question that you, because I think it's an area of development.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know Jason and Melissa did a huge, and they can speak to this, a huge unit in the 8th grade on that. So it is covered definitely in the middle school, the 8th grade level. Like I said, our curriculum is a living, breathing curriculum. So, whenever we see opportunities to add something, we certainly will. Again, part of the challenge is we only see the kids for two grade levels at the high school, 28 classes, take out snow days, half days, all that. Realistically, you're only seeing the kids for about 24 classes. That's good enough for probably 3 lessons, 3 units. If you figure each unit's about 7 or 8 classes. So it's difficult because there's so many important topics that we're still not covering, but anytime you want to add something, you got to take something out. So I think we definitely have an opportunity for growth in that area. I think part of what we need to do is go back and see what we're teaching and see what maybe we can take out and what we can add in. But certainly we're definitely open to adding that. I think that would be great. And like I said, I know Melissa and Jason definitely covered that in the 8th grade level.
And Brendan, I think just to add to that, like you said about the partnership piece too, just because time is so limited and, one department can only do so much too, but just kind of expanding the partnerships in that work, like the health department joining up with student support team, that sort of thing. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, Catherine Digner has been such a great partner for us. She's been absolutely amazing. She does great work with the Youth Action Team, which has partnered up with us both at the high school and middle school level. So that's been a great component of what we do in health education at both the high school and middle school levels. So certainly we're definitely open to more of that.
Mike?
Yep, Mike, then Amy.
Okay,
Yep.
so I want to go back to the 6th grade for just a minute, so not to harp on it. And Melissa didn't pay me to say this, I just want to make sure everybody's clear of that. So, we talked about building blocks, and certainly the health classes now are light years different than when we went to school. And what they cover and what they have to cover. So I'm just sort of curious, and you don't have to answer this now. Why in just 6th grade did something become a conflict in order to not be able to help? Was there a particular course that we felt was important in 6th grade that we had to kind of bump it for that? And I understand.
Yeah, I wish I had the answer. It's something I'm going to definitely look into more, because it sounds like it was probably, if Megan Webb wouldn't have been part of that scheduling, I believe, so it would go back a little bit, but just to dig a little bit more in terms of,
just curious.
Because like Brendan said,
I understand.
I know the schedule at the Galvin and just, organizing things and who gets what when. I'm not 100% sure, but I have to imagine. Unless, Doug, you have
just
some...
curious, yeah.
I think
All
I
right,
can add
Doug's
to
got
that.
it.
So
Doug.
the issue is STEM, the engineering classes that we've added. So with the engineering classes that we've added and with world language, the way it's been added, so we just can't fit everything in the grid. So ideally, we would have a K through 12 comprehensive model with reasonably, equitable time year to year. So it would be taught with some more continuity. You heard Craig Vecchier talk about, they're kind of stealing whatever time they can get in their schedule. What they do in K2 is different than 3-4, right? Ideally that would be more consistent. So, so Craig could, and his counterparts could more thoughtfully plan, and the same with middle and same with high school. But ideally, would like to have it, to expand the offering at high school more than 2 days in a 6-day cycle, and have it be, 9, 10, 11, 12. But I think that's kind of in the works.
I'm just curious, is there something with STEM that relates specifically to grade 6 that doesn't impact other grades, or foreign language? I'm just curious what it is.
Yeah, no, I think it's just the layout of the 42 period grid, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when you have 3 teams, 12 sections, trying to go to specialist all at the same time, right? Because everyone, so at the middle school, schedule is different than any other level. So they have common planning time and prep time, right? So the common planning time is for the grade level, right? So you need to take 12 sections of 25 kids and send them to a location, right? And so so something has to give. So without getting into the whole, what's on the grid, what's off, it's just a conflict, and that was a decision that was made a couple years ago. And with Adam and his team, and I think Meg is looking at it a little bit differently. So I think there'll be more to hear on this.
Yeah, and we can certainly cover this offline, but just why 6th grade and only 6th grade? So, and maybe 6th grade has a different setup that I'm just not understanding. So, but we can cover it offline. Thank you.
We'll definitely look into it. But I have a question, but just to bridge on that, the current 6th graders, I don't think got health in their 5th grade hybrid, and they lost almost a half year in 4th grade. So you have a class of 2028 that when they come into 7th grade, it's going to be all new material for them. They won't have that building, really.
Melissa does not agree with you.
What?
Can I just, last year, 5th grade did have health.
They had it
So
online?
yes, yep. So they had it the second half of the year. They had 30 classes. I met with every 5th grader.
Okay, but they didn't get I know they didn't get the puberty video.
And it was because we didn't have the ability to separate part of our curriculum. That's why.
All right, so they did have it in 5th. Okay, that's good to know.
We were trying to recall.
Yeah, we were trying to remember. I didn't know if it was weaved into iCare.
Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure about either.
All right, thank you. But that is kind of my question about parent communication. As far as if it's a sensitive topic, like we're going to show the puberty video, do they get a letter at home to opt out their children if they want?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Is that good for questions? Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for coming tonight and staying on for questions. We really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. Have a good one.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Next up, we have the WMHS Program of Studies. And so, Ian, just so that you know, Amy and Dave, we are projecting just the second sheet that you provided with just the changes. And the committee has been provided both the change doc and the program itself. So you can kind of just report kind of the changes that you've made and where we're at, and then we can take questions and then maybe make a motion.
So, sounds good. Thank you, Doug. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Believe it or not, it's that time of year where we're thinking about courses for the next school year. So we're at that time already, and we are getting ready for course selection next month. Part of the process before that is to review our program of studies. Amy and I meet with each department, and the overall goal is just to evaluate every class that we're offering currently, and figuring out what's working and are there any areas to adapt or to grow. And so that's something we do every single year. And this year we have a few proposed changes that we just want to go over with you. You'll probably notice a kind of a theme here is semesterization is something that's come up already tonight a couple of times, but also with our proposed changes. We're trying to see if we can offer more semester-long courses so students are able to take, have more opportunity to take additional classes
with different topics. As we just talked about, as far as the schedule getting full and tough to fit things, if every class is a full year course, that'll fill up pretty quickly. So we're trying to offer more options for students. And I think if you see on there the English, so the first area we want to talk about is English. It's the biggest example of semesterization. Currently, our seniors have always taken English 12. Some can take AP English as well, but that's pretty much been what they've taken. Next year, we'd like to offer the seniors they could still take the English 12 if they want to, or they're going to be able to pick 2 semester courses out of a list of the 8 that you see there. And so the English departments and other departments, they've done surveys with students. And so I think that's how they've come to these. And so it's nice to get the students' input on a whole list of options. These weren't just the only 8 that were proposed. And so we literally surveyed the students and see what they wanted. And so some of the top ones were ones that were pushed forward here. So, I mean, I can read them, but if you can see this on the screen, you can see this journalism, contemporary thought, Shakespeare, public speaking, crime and literature, Not So Little Women, Holocaust and literature, and Ghosts That Haunt Us, exploring human response to conflict and trauma. So these are all 1 semester courses. So students, instead of taking English 12, have the opportunity to pick 2 of these to satisfy their senior English requirement. So just to give you a sense of what we're talking about with semesterizing, that's something we'd like to pilot. We obviously didn't want to do that all 4 grades right off the bat, so we just want to see, this is a pretty big change and pretty big, I think, improvement. So we'd like to see how this goes. We're excited to see during course selection next month which courses students request. So that covers English.
David, so none of these courses have been taught before, is that correct?
I'm sorry?
None of these courses have been taught previously, is that correct?
Most of them have not. A couple of them were taught, but it's tweaking, and it was a full year course before. But basically, most of these that you can see here are all new.
Okay, thank you.
There've been a couple in the past that were offered, but yeah, these are all going to be new options for students for semester-long classes.
Dave, I would add to that some of these courses we tried to offer in the past as full year courses, and we didn't get enough kids to sign up for them because they couldn't fit full year courses in their schedule. So the idea of contemporary thought or journalism as a semester class, we hopefully will get more students, because students tend to have room in their schedule for half a year, but not necessarily a year.
Got it, thank you.
Dave, do you want to jump to social studies because it parallels, it's the same recommendation?
I was looking down the list.
Yeah.
So if you look down a little bit to the social studies, the exact same setup as far as surveying students and trying to semesterize classes. We're going to be offering 4 new social studies electives for seniors. And so those are civil rights and women's rights movements of the 20th century, cultural psychology of genocides, philosophy, and the Salem witchcraft trials. So those 4 will be 1 semester again, that seniors will be able to pick from. I think this is great too, because a lot of times, students follow the progression of world history, U.S. History 1, the sophomore year, U.S. History 2, the junior year, and then that senior year, there's no specific grad requirement. It's just, a number of choices. And again, like Amy just mentioned, full year courses can tend to fill right up and they compete for each other, whereas if we can offer a lot of different semesterized courses, students can pick a couple of areas that they're interested in.
Can I ask another question? I'm sorry, Amy.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's important to note that we're trying to sort of spread the interest levels too. We're really trying to grab our seniors and keep them enrolled in as many content area courses as we can. So the social studies department really worked hard to think about what the kids wanted, and by polling kids and really finding out what would you like to explore more. So
I had a question. We just went through a rather extensive logo controversy that dealt with Indigenous Americans. Is there changes to the curriculum anticipated to focus more education on that, more current education, or is that already covered at the junior level or the sophomore level?
So I think, and Kara can speak more to this as well with the curriculum work, but I think that work is really, we're looking at the core content courses already being offered. And I would say that the big changes in the high school, some of that work already happened before going through some of the logo work and some of the changes that have happened in the district. But looking definitely at sort of text selection, inclusive voices, and some of that work is really happening at the core offerings. So English 9 through 11, and Dave just said, right, the world history, US 1 and US 2. So Kara, I don't know if you want to add to the work that
you hit on a lot of it, Amy. Like you said, the work's ongoing. I think we have the Indigenous Curriculum History Task Force happening this year. And one of the ideals I think we're looking at the high school level is to offer a course that kind of, would be a culmination of a build from K through 12 in terms of different aspects of history that students would learn. And I think a goal would be to have a course offering at the high school at a more, sophisticated level for our high school students. But that would not be ready to roll out for next school year. But something definitely on the horizon.
Okay, thank you.
And Amy, did you want to, I'm just thinking about, I was talking to Margaret Messier, our ELA curriculum coordinator too, just about the work that you're doing on just selling these new electives and talking to students about them. And I know Jason and Margaret are supporting that work as well as teachers and guidance and department coordinators. Do you want to talk about that so kids really understand?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dave and the guidance counselors, do a great job when they're meeting with kids and talking about first they meet with the curriculum coordinators to really understand the changes in all the departments. And so the guidance counselors have quite a task to kind of know all of this. But I think that the second piece that we've really worked on for the last few years is asking teachers to really understand the trajectory and the offerings in each of their departments, because they are the ones who are kind of on the front line talking to their students about course selection. And so curriculum coordinators, especially in English and social studies, Margaret and Jason, they've worked up a specific PowerPoint to kind of go through these brand new courses for kids. I know Joanne Marks in science is working with her teachers to really look at the changes, and Dave's going to talk about some of those in the engineering courses and the computer science classes, because those are two areas that we really are trying to grow. And so, our question is, if our teachers aren't selling these classes to kids, and our teachers do a terrific job in sort of meeting with kids and talking to them about the options, but we really also want to think about not only what are the core graduation requirements, but what are some of the other electives and offerings that we have that kids might just take to try something and see if they can grow their interest in at a younger age. And so some of these offerings we're talking about starting earlier, so that sophomores and juniors are looking into some of these electives earlier than they would have before.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's definitely all hands on deck approach with that, because like Amy said, next week is that day of the meetings with the department leaders and the counselors. And so that's always it's been a helpful addition that we've done that, so they can feel more equipped with answering questions and promoting electives. And I think Margaret and Jason, they're going out next week, I think, to visit those classrooms, all the junior classrooms. The counselors in a couple of weeks, they're going to visit every classroom to hit all the students, to give an overall course selection for probably grade level. So as far as just remind them what their requirements are, but also electives. So it's a big push for a big group for like a class size. And then they will meet with them individually as well, one-on-one with the students. So just all that combined is our hope that'll get the most information out there and awareness for these students. So on that chart there are a couple other ones on there. So world language, we have Latin dual enrollment this year. It was just added on. We were fortunate enough to have this added to our high school, but it wasn't so it's now officially in our program of studies, but we didn't want to not mention it because it's a great opportunity. As you know, we don't currently have a lot of dual enrollment courses, and we'd like to really grow that. And to have the Latin dual enrollment as an option in-house is great. So again, that wasn't in the program last year, so we wanted to just kind of point that out. Also kind of to acknowledge our goal down the road is to increase those opportunities all across the board.
Dave, could you just explain a little bit the dual enrollment and how it works?
Yeah, so basically, these students are taking classes, these students, there's 9 students, I believe, this year taking that class. They will be able to receive college credit and our high school credit. So it's actually taught by one of our high school teachers, who went through and was able to, not licensed, what am I thinking of the word here, but basically approved to teach the course as a dual enrollment course. So they're basically getting 2 things at once and they're still in the building. So it's a dual enrollment course taken in the building here at the school that they're going to be able to have moving forward as college credit and high school. And I think a lot of the moving forward, just in general, just not to get too off topic, but dual enrollment can take the forms in many different ways. Some of it could be in-house with our high school teachers that are trained and are qualified and licensed to do so. Sometimes there's dual enrollment courses on the college campuses, and sometimes it's kind of a hybrid of both, where there's a little bit of each. And I would love to see that be an area where we grow moving forward. All right, so moving on to the math and business departments, math skills, that is going to be something offered to students who are struggling with math that are identified by their teachers. So it'll be kind of a referral base. It's going to be more of a directed class instead of just like a tutorial type of class. It's specifically geared to students with their math skills and assistance with that. It'll be a couple of days per cycle, so it won't be something they'd have every single day. But it's a couple of times ish a week, basically. So we're going to offer some sections of that next year. Again, students that are identified through staff, and they'll be notified. The families will be notified that that's being recommended, and they'll kind of go from there. So we're hoping that will increase, improve the success level of some of our students who come in struggling a little bit in the subject of math. And then on another semesterization kick here, we have social media marketing and principle of business. And that goes back to Amy's point where they both have been full year courses. And that, again, given all the schedule constraints, the requests weren't overly high for those classes. And I don't think it's because of the topic at all. I think it's more of room in the schedule type of issues. So if we can move those, which we would, to semester courses, now you're letting a lot more students be able to fit that into the schedule that would be interested in the topic themselves. So those are 2 courses that we're going to be switching down to a semester level. The only one left I think we didn't mention was in the science, tech, engineering departments. We're adding 2 new courses, and they're both Project Lead the Way courses, which is very exciting. I'm not sure if people know Project Lead the Way, but it's a program. It's like an innovative project-based learning program, I guess is the best way to explain it. And it's in areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. And they're courses that they explore and they incorporate real-world challenges. And so it's a specific level of curriculum that there's an application process basically for that designation on your course. So if it's a Project Lead the Way course you're offering, you have to meet certain criteria. And so as you can see there, we're adding 2. There's a Project Lead the Way Engineering Design and Development and an AP Project Lead the Way Computer Science A course. So we're really excited to offer those 2. As Amy said, we're trying to explore and improve our offerings for engineering and computer science. And although they're not new classes, there were a number of other classes that were granted that designation, I should say, Project Lead the Way. So I think we'll be up to 7 Project Lead the Way courses next year once these 2 get added in. So again, I think, there are a ton of changes, but I think the ones that are there are kind of exciting, and I think all kind of point to what we've been wanting to do for the last couple of years, and just got slowed down a little bit, but now we're turning the corner here and we're moving ahead.
All right.
Any questions on those?
Oh, go ahead, Kev.
Just about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Just one question and one comment. The comment is I was really excited to see the dual enrollment course, and if that's a possibility in the future, I think that that's really awesome. I mean, there's so many benefits to students, so kudos to the staff member who went through the process to become certified for that, and definitely am excited about that. My question is, and I'm assuming that there's a reason. So in the first couple pages, there's the WPS strategy for social, emotional health and learning, but it's dated 2018 to 2021, and then the initiatives 2018 to 2019. I'm just wondering the decision to leave that or to still have that in the book, even though to the casual reader it comes across as dated.
Yeah, I think, I think that was something that we weren't convinced that we were moving away from as a district, right? So it was sort of something that we left in there. It's certainly something that we can take out if we feel that it doesn't, the initiatives aren't, as current, but it is part of the overarching work that's happening, I think, in the district. It's not a specific school district, school document, but it's something that has been in there and I think speaks to the overall work. Again, it is something that we could take out if, especially if Doug and Kara felt like it would be something that we should remove for the time being. But I do think that it kind of speaks to the overall arching, the movement of the work. Certainly with COVID and the other things on the platter. It's not a plate anymore, it's a platter. I think that's something we need to kind of get back to, and kind of update those initiatives so that it's a little bit more current.
Yeah, I'm not at all advocating for it to be removed. I was more curious because I see the value in them there, but I do wonder if maybe I would just update the timeline just so it doesn't seem to be dated, that these are really actually current, that these are still the objectives. That's just my personal suggestion. So, but no, I mean, it makes sense that they're in there, and I figured that that's why. Thank you.
Go ahead, Angel. So this, I guess, goes for all grades, but specifically from 8th graders going to 9th grade. When they are selecting their courses, I think that someone's coming in the next couple of months to talk to them about courses. Are they going to have guidance from their teachers onto what level of classes they should be taking, or do the students pick that themselves?
So basically, you're right. Next month, we do have our guidance team going to the Galvin, and they'll meet with their students that they'll be assigned as 9th graders. And there's kind of a presentation that they go through that covers the whole gamut of basically a transition into high school itself. But there's a heavy focus on the scheduling piece and the course selection. So that information will be given to the students as far as the options. We have like a cheat sheet with all the different courses that they'll be able to pick from in each class, each subject, and they'll be walked through that. The counselors talk about briefly a little bit about the different levels and things like that. But to answer your question, I think the 8th grade teachers are involved in recommending what they think would be great based off of their seeing the student every day, right? So. And then on top of that, once the requests are all entered, we're going to send home that list to the families. So the families will be able to look at that and see and kind of go down the list. And if they have any questions at all, that's the time to kind of go back and forth and figure out, why are they recommending this when we thought that kind of thing. And before we go ahead and make the schedules or enter anything in, we finalize those lists. And then once we get all those back, so it's kind of, again, team approach, parents, student, teachers. Between those three, that's pretty much what we hope to nail down the right classes.
Perfect. And then, so is it maybe just not to that extent for the upper level grades?
We'll still send home. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say whether they're already been there, so they kind of have a little bit of an idea of what goes on.
Yeah, I think the students probably get to know each year. They get a little more comfortable in what they're getting into and what to pick and where they should be. But at the high school level, the teachers actually go in and enter their recommendations into their students' their accounts for their recommendations. And so it's not an automatic, set in stone, but they do pick. So their English teacher is going to put in the next grade's recommendation. And so the counselors see that when they meet with the students. And providing everything makes sense, they go along with it. If there's any questions, again, that's when it comes up with My teacher recommended X, I was hoping for Y, and then they can figure it out then. But so no, the teachers do play a really big role at the high school level with the recommendations. And like Amy mentioned, not just the core subjects, but looking for each subject area teacher to push their electives in their own department as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any offering for sort of caregivers of students as they're going through, to sort of Amy's point, even transition years? Somebody moving from the Galvin into the high school. I mean, the schedules are going to be, I assume, vastly different with electives and whatnot. Like, so we are telling sort of the students, here's maybe some suggestions, but are there any supports, for the folks back home to sort of help them with their students and how to navigate that sort of new part of planning out their own educational goals?
Yeah, so you mean like show for the parents and guardians things at home to help their own child to get through this?
Yep.
And what to pick? Yeah. So we have this program of studies, and then what I do is I cut this down to basically called like the Galvin edition of the program of studies, where it's kind of 60 pages is a little bit much for an 8th grade. I know as a parent, I would be a little overwhelmed with 60 pages of a high school program of studies when my students go into 9th grade. So we kind of fine tune it just to the classes that they would be even deciding upon. And so it's a condensed program, so we share that out. I think last year we did have a video clip that we shared out a link to for the parents. So we definitely want to make sure that the parents have their questions answered. But it's a great point to have. So if there's any other ideas in addition to that, but we basically have we have emails that get sent home, and then the program of studies that's a little bit condensed. And it sounds simple, but it's that one pager that has each subject laid out. So okay, if you're in English, this is what you're taking. If you're in social studies, there's 2 choices: World History College and World History Honors. Like, don't worry about the 42 pages of classes. These are your 2 choices. So pick one. And I think that alone helps families kind of just sift through this massive amount of information to, oh, wait a second, I have these 2 to pick from, not 60 pages, So I think that form has helped in the last couple of years. We've added something as simple as that.
I also think we've done the 8th grade open house with families has been really helpful. And this year we're doing it sort of in a 2-part stage. We initially were going to have 8th grade families in January, but because of where the numbers were, we did some virtual videos that we sent home. And I think that is a real educational piece for families. We are going to come up with a new date in the spring now that the numbers are coming down, and we're getting back to a place where we can have people come in and gather. I think that's a real important opportunity because parents are able to meet with each department leaders and get a real in-depth overview of what the course offerings are and what the trajectory of learning is in that department. The department leaders also do use the program of studies as a guide, but I think it's a nice opportunity for parents to understand if their child is interested in that area or those courses, what the offerings are, when they're able to take those courses, and what are some of the initiatives that each department is working on. So I think that's a really important piece. It also connects them to the department leaders who can answer some of the questions that they may have specifically as they go through their 4 years. So the department leaders become really important advocates for the courses and the offerings in their departments.
Thank you. I would just like to say, I know that one of the directions has been sort of diversity in curriculum, and I really see that in some of these offerings that are being brought to students, and the idea that they seem really interesting. I would take a number of them. And so just thank you for putting the work in and putting that in front of the kids. I think it's fantastic to be able to sort of have that available to them.
All right, I think we have a motion.
Oh, go ahead, Amy. Can you not start French at high school? There's no French 1 in the program, so I didn't know.
There is not.
Yeah.
So
No,
you have
there
to
is
take it
not.
in middle school
So-
first to be able to take it in high school?
Yes and no. We have had Erin Manzi, who is our world language coordinator, has the short answer is yes, but maybe not, right? So there has been one situation while I've been in Wakefield that we were creative and were able to get a student sort of enrolled and moved into the French program by fast tracking them. I don't think it was the right move for every student, but it worked. I think that, yeah, French is tough, right? And we have more and more students taking Spanish. Spanish is, and we have a growing Italian program, right? Yeah. So as the Spanish and the Italian program, and we have like a lasting Latin program, like the Latin kids just don't want to give it up, right? Like I have one of my own takes Latin and loves it. It's crazy. So those three languages have really kind of drawn students in. So unfortunately, the French numbers have decreased. And because of that, and because of teaching opportunities and who we have and preps and things like that, French really does need to start in middle school. But if somebody comes in and changes their mind, like I said, we have worked with students before and we can moving forward.
I guess I just want middle school parents to know that if your kid wants to take French in high school, they should start. I don't know if that's communicated backwards, right?
Right. I will speak to Erin Manzi about that. But like I said, we look at the trends across the state in high schools. Some high schools have dropped their French programs. It's certainly one of the languages that is phasing out in some schools. I'm not saying that we're going to do that. And we certainly don't want to do that. But I think that there is much more of a draw and a growth in the Spanish and the Italian programs right now. If you look at the trajectory over the last 10 years, the shift has been dramatic.
I think Emily in Paris is going to bring French back.
I know.
Here first.
It may. It very well may.
The other thing, just before we vote, does this list of changes have a headcount effect?
No.
No. So we're absorbing all this within the current staffing level?
Yes, because the offerings will offset the students who are currently taking English 12. For the most part, and then in social studies, the offerings will have a slight impact on class sizes in some of the other areas. But looking at our average class sizes in social studies right now, which is quite good, we will be able to sustain that these new courses and offer those without having a huge increase in class size.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I move that the school committee approve the 2022-2023 Wakefield Memorial High School Program of Studies as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? All opposed? Okay. Thanks, thanks guys for hanging in there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for all the work.
Thank you so much.
Yep, have a great rest of the night.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
All right.
So we just have just two more comments. One is I just, when you have some time to reflect and just thinking back, for the members that have been here for some time, or if you were here and then you left, if you look at this program of studies compared to a program of studies that was just in place a few years ago, you'll see some dramatic changes, right? If you remember, we used to talk about the shortage of engineers and we need more science classes and we need more STEM activities. There's more STEM activities at the middle level, and now we're moving into not just an engineering classes, but an AP engineering computer science offering as well. I mean, that's something that will help students in their college placement, or if they choose to go out to work. The dual enrollment piece, and kind of the revival of Latin, and kind of also the kind of the differentiation that the certification that kids can get in other world language, and kind of proficiency, right? And so these are things that were not in place just a short time ago. We had health at three levels. We now have it at 9. Right? We need to have it at 12, but we have it at 9, right? And so, right, but if we don't look at it as a deficit lens, but we look at it where we've come and what has been created here, I'm particularly pleased with our humanities and our English departments and how they have worked together to create these semester courses, because now it's kids have more choice and it changes their schedule and they can take things based on their interest levels, right? So it increases engagement, it increases in work output. It also diversifies their transcript when they're applying to college. And so, we're particularly pleased about this. Amy alluded to this idea that you'll be hearing more about dual enrollment. You will, right? So we have kind of a joint venture going with a local community college where that's going to help us in school, but it's also going to create opportunities for out-of-school college opportunities as well. That's for first-generation college applicants, okay? And it's also for our most advanced students that want to have a college experience as well. So there's a lot of irons in the fire here. And a lot of places this stuff has been shelved because of COVID. And the fact that we've continued to develop in this area, I think is a testament to the teachers. Because these changes, the teachers created these syllabi, right? So these are teacher courses that are based on things that they're super passionate about. And if they're passionate about it, kids are going to be passionate about it. So I just want to say that. Pleased about it. I'll leave it there. Thank you for the support with the program of studies, right? If you have questions, I would encourage you to reach out to David Robinson in guidance or to Amy McLeod. Before I close, earlier in my updates, I forgot to just give an update on Parent University.
Yes.
And so I know Carol wanted to just share some of the work she's doing in preparing for Parent University.
Sure. Yep, I can give a quick update. Yep, so I'd like to thank, for this round of Parent University, I've been working with Catherine Dingra, Laura Hubert, Jennifer McDonald, Doug, and Estelle Burdick. And we think we have a nice series to roll out for March. We decided to do similar to what we did last year, which was kind of one night a week in March. There's 4 Thursdays in March that we're using for Parent University. We're starting off with a keynote speaker, Lynn Lyons, on March 3rd at 7. I think that should be really well attended. She's titling her presentation, Helping Children and Teens, the Emotional Skills Your Family Needs. So she's been really well received working with our staff throughout the year, and I know she's come to Wakefield in the past, and it was a packed house at Galvin, I think like 3 years ago or so. And then March 10th, we thought it would be a good idea to offer to the community some of what we have offered to our students, and then our Indigenous Curriculum History Task Force, which was an opportunity to view the documentary Dawnland, which Ms. Lesser has come and worked with our student staff, our Indigenous Curriculum History Task Force, to watch and do a Q&A related to that documentary. Which is kind of like a historic investigation on some of the past difficult truths related to indigenous people in Maine. So Mishi was great, was able to come for a Q&A session for all who register. So if people register for that, then they will be sent the link to view the documentary at home. We do have licensing to offer that to those who register. So that's a nice option there. And then, so the idea would be to pre-watch the documentary, and then Mishi would host a Q&A session with all who attend. So we think that's going to be a really nice session as well. That's on March 10th, like I said. And then on Thursday, March 24th, and Thursday, March 31st, we get into some choice workshops. I'll just go through some of the topics. It's a pretty wide range. We have one workshop focused on an evolving understanding of gender with specialist Bert Whittier. We have a transition to middle school workshop with assistant principals Allison Hammer and Andrew Tetrall at the Galvin. We have Beth Hughes running Google Classroom 101 for secondary students. Our elementary principals are going to come together and do their, kindergarten information night, but we built that into the Parent University brochure. So our elementary principals and other staff too will just give incoming kindergarten parents an overview of what to expect for kindergarten. Andrew Cedrone and Donna Kostick and Catherine Dingra are going to do in plain sight again. the pandemic version, tour a teen bedroom and learn the hidden signs of vaping and drug use, self-harm. And then on March 31st, a couple more choices. We have our math curriculum coordinators, Lindsay Mosca and Valerie Drynan, doing an overview of our new math curriculum rollout, just digging in a little bit more on that topic with parents. Geraldine Traficante will do a transition to high school presentation for incoming ninth graders. We have a special education teacher at Galvin, Lauren Graham's running a workshop on executive functioning skill development. And then Andrew Cedrone, and actually some, I believe it's going to be high school students who present with them, are going to run a workshop called Navigating Social Media with Your Teens and Tweens, perspective from WPS students. So that should be really interesting as well. So we met today we have to firm up a couple of logistics related to Zoom links and final descriptions, and then we'll start our promotion of the events on Monday. So you can expect to see Facebook events, and we'll get something out on School Messenger. Just try to make it the information widely available to people, so we get pretty good attendance. But I can take any questions, but that's a pretty full overview. I know people are dying to move on. All right, Steven, that kid in class.
Not yet, it will be coming out. Just in terms of Zoom links and stuff, I know sometimes in the past there have been some challenges where like maybe some more people than we anticipated wanted to take advantage. Like if we're speaking specifically around like the Lynn Lions, if we got a packed house on Zoom, are we imagining that we can cover that with our Zoom license?
Yeah, we can. I have at central office, a couple of us have district licenses that cover up to 1,000 people. So I think that will be fine.
Great.
But Lynn Lyons, actually, she sets up her own. So I'll set up the one from Issue Lesser, but Lynn Lyons sets up her own Zoom link in a webinar format.
Okay.
So it's just, so I'm anticipating that should be good.
Fantastic.
The only one that's really, because we're always loose on registration because we want people, even if you show up last minute, come, but the one that would probably be the most restrictive is the Dawnland Q&A, because there's kind of not a lot of point going if you don't watch the documentary ahead of time. And then we don't have licensing to just widely release publicly the link to stream it. So we're going to probably attach a Google form to that and have people register and then email everybody out the Zoom link and the link to stream it at home.
Great.
I'm sorry, I missed. Is it the same time every Thursday?
Good question. Yeah, so they're all Thursdays. Lynn Lyons is going to run a little longer, 7 to 8:30. But then we have 7 to 8 for all the others.
Okay, thanks.
That's it for me. Thank you for your patience, and I know we ran a little bit longer than I think we anticipated with our health presentation.
That's all right. It's all good.
But thank you for your
That was
for
long
your
overdue,
attention.
though. I think it was a great presentation.
They cover a lot of ground.
Yeah, they do.
When you look at the curriculum, they cover a lot of ground, and it's a pretty sophisticated curriculum. And when you see our young, our elementary kids learning how to take the perspective of others, through games and through different activities, it's really brilliant stuff.
It was great to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, subcommittee reports. I'm going to give a quick update for finance and facilities. We're in budget season, so we're kind of meeting pretty much every week. We met last week, had a quick update from Tim about facilities, which was really focused on heat, snow removal, and kind of talking about the snow/ice that was scheduled last Friday. And then moved to finance, and we had two friends from the finance committee join us. They have liaisons to the school committee, and so two folks joined us, and we really just talked about kind of logistics and timing and meetings and how did we make sure that we got them the information that they needed. And but we did also talk about kind of information and feedback that had been received so far. We will be having the meeting that will happen on March 1st for our committee will be fully focused on budget. That's I believe that's the only thing that we are going to talk about that night. So it's really, we're going to dive deep on the feedback received and kind of where the thinking is, and we will have all received our binders by then. So we spent some time just talking with them about kind of the process and kind of their involvement and talking a little bit about, a little bit about numbers and kind of growth. But it was just a good conversation. We're having they're going to join us again this week. And then there's kind of another meeting scheduled for the following Thursday that they're going to attend, that's kind of prepping them for going back to the finance committee to kind of start to share some thinking. And you guys go in front of the finance committee officially on March 3rd. So there's a lot of kind of timing and coordination around the meetings that we've been talking about, just to make sure that everybody feels prepared. So that was really, we did talk a little bit about Chapter 70 funding and the initial funding, which Christine sent the committee an email about that, of what our number is looking like for this year. And that was really it. So I'm gonna, do we have any high school project updates?
So I can give an update.
Yeah, sure. I didn't go to the meeting last week, so
I didn't
Okay.
either.
So did you go to
I
the
did not, no.
So the PBC voted unanimously to support the PDP, which is the report that includes the educational plan and the space summary, along with the feasibility information from the site analysis that they've done. So that was submitted to the MSBA. So we will get feedback from the MSBA, and once we do, the project management team and the architects will process that feedback and present it back to the administration, and they should come to school committee and present here as well. So we can talk to them about getting on the calendar for that as well.
Okay.
But that's a milestone. The next step is feasibility. The work that was done in getting to that plan, getting the educational plan in place, was a tremendous amount of work. And a lot of that work was headed up by Amy McLeod, Kara, and the curriculum coordinators did a lot of work for the educational plan, right? And looking at curriculum, space needs, but it included everything that we do in the building. And so that was a pretty comprehensive document. The total PDP that was submitted to MSBA is, I think, 2,185 pages.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's a significant document. But it's a testament to the work it takes to kind of get into this space and make changes. So that's a very quick update. Once we hear back from MSBA, we will be getting a summary from our project management team.
one thing I could add is our tour.
Sure.
We did the project team did a tour of three high schools to look at comps and to get a sense of what some of the flow of comparing design elements with programmatic needs, with academic needs, with the community needs. And so we toured new high schools in Winchester, in Belmont, and in Somerville. And very different schools, very different community needs, but really some very interesting input and feedback as we get to the next step of the design. Two of those projects were left field projects, two of those schools, so they were even more able to talk in depth about them. One of them was not, but it was certainly very interesting to go. So.
The team that made those tours, we had representation from the PBC. We had a few members from PBC. We had several teachers, administrators. So we had a nice kind of cross section of people that would really need to see. And once you see it, it's one thing to see the design and a concept. There's another thing entirely to walk a new building. So it was really a nice opportunity.
Awesome. Okay, Tom, labor.
Labor, we have been meeting. We began our negotiations for a new contract with Unit C yesterday. That first session went well. We are meeting with Unit A tomorrow night. So we've been working to get ready for those things.
Okay. Mike, student services?
Sure. So if it's okay, I'll cover CPAC. It's kind of intertwined
Yeah,
with that as
sure.
well. So student services met on February 2nd. We talked about a variety of things, professional development, kids and adults, Doug provided a recap of some recent meetings they've had with counselors. In that regard, we talked about the budget, because that's what everybody's talking about these days. We talked about some intervention work that's going on right now. Andrew Cedrone had come the prior one. He was fantastic. Really, I think I talked about that before. And we also talked about visiting schools. I know we talked about that a little earlier as well. So everybody's very enthusiastic about getting a chance to do that. And then I provided everybody with an update on CPAC. So CPAC had the first meeting that I've attended on January 31st. It was really an incredible meeting for me as far as a learning curve. So Ann Herzog, Chris Martone Levine, and Chrissy Loftus, and of course Rosie Galvin and I were there. And it was very interesting. I would say the conversation broke down into really three basic categories: the stigma and the acceptance of children who are in a special education program of sort, the awareness and visibility, mentoring / resources for parents, and they also talked a little bit about upcoming conferences. There are for kids, but also for parents, some stigma that's attached to having a child who's in a special education program. It seems crazy in this day and age. That needs to be addressed and understood appropriately. They want to get more awareness out there to parents of what's available to them, and they're challenged with getting people to be on both the CPAC organization from a leadership perspective, but also to attend events. And one that really kind of caught me off guard was the fact that parents don't feel like they have the resources or the mentoring connections to help them through things. You know, anyone who's been through an IEP or a 504, it can be very daunting, very complex as well. But just managing the day-to-day of having a child who requires, in some cases light, but in some cases very severe special education needs, and parents feel lost. They just don't feel like they have the resources. In some cases, those resources are there, and they're just not aware of them. So that's the awareness and the visibility. But just connecting to parents, that one that's perhaps gone through it, one that's just beginning that process, is kind of a daunting process because there's confidentiality issues. And Rosie had agreed to try to broker two particular parents that could perhaps get together and, you know, I've been there, I've done it, this is what worked, this is what I didn't. It could make a world of difference to a lot of parents and their children as well. So I found it to be an amazing first meeting, and I learned a great deal already, and there's more to come in that regard. So I'll be talking about this on a pretty regular basis. They asked, I said, what can we do as a school committee? And they said, you know, we just need it to be out there and center so that people are aware of it. So partially the stigma goes away, partially perhaps we talk about things that parents that are on the TV know are resources available to them could make a dramatic difference. So I told them I would certainly commit to that. As far as conferences, there are some conferences that I'll attend. I'll certainly let everybody else know if they'd like to come and kind of get that perspective as well. So a really good first meeting for me personally.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks for the update. Kevin.
Great, thanks. So the Policy and Communications Subcommittee met last Tuesday, February 1st, and we have a number of balls kind of up in the air as we look at updating some of our policies, including the ones that are on the table and how they kind of fit in with our overall goals moving forward. For this meeting, we started first talking about social media policy and kind of get a sense of where we maybe want to go with something like that. Mr. Ingalls and Superintendent Lyons, we're going to be working together and in tandem with our technology director to talk a little bit about those. But also kind of acknowledging it's hard to kind of wrap your head around because there's multiple layers, like when you talk about social media, those sorts of things, and how there are some challenges that come along with it. So we kind of process that a little bit, and there'll be some additional work on that at our next meeting. And then policies that are related to that we also want to be looking at are issues around cyberbullying, digital use, social media use for staff and students, etc. So we're going to continue to work on those issues. We also had a conversation around how to best continue to educate the school community on these issues, those sorts of things. So I know Mr. Weiner was reviewing the policies, was going to mark them up, and then be communicating and working with Steve and Superintendent Lyons. Related to the policy that we're working on today, so we have on the table, of course, our non-discrimination policy, which includes harassment and retaliation. And it's one of, I think, like several different steps that we're going to be taking as we look to update these policies in reaction to current events and to be more congruent with regulations and the types of things that we learned a little bit when we had talked with Attorney Joyce. So one of the things that would be kind of next steps would be a sexual harassment policy, and then also with some more transparency in that policy, and then with some Title IX information updated and congruent with the current regulations that had emerged out of OCR. So those are the types of things that we'll be working on. There's a draft that the administration's working on that we're going to review at our next subcommittee meeting. Kind of related to that, there's been a lot of talk about handbooks, because certainly, you know, the policies inform them what's in the handbooks. And so I know Ms. Lehman has brought this up several times about how do we have a more meaningful discussion as a group, and how do we maybe make it more manageable. And so I know the assistant superintendents talked about additional training around handbooks with our school community, our teachers and our staff, but also, you know, maybe the need to start the process earlier. So we're actually looking maybe as early as March to start doing some of that work with maybe the goal of having handbooks completed by June, just in time as like students to start in the transition and those sorts of things, which could be really, really beneficial. But as we talked about, to do so in a way and maybe spread over several meetings so that we can really go in depth, and it's not just something that comes up at the end of the meeting with, you know, hundreds of pages of different formats. So to that end, we are all going to divide up the 3 books, I believe, and kind of that will be one of our responsibilities. So with elementary, with Stephen, Amy taking on the middle school, and myself at the high school. But I don't know, the other thing, one more thing, when we meet next, we're also going to address, you know, this kind of came up, if it's not addressed earlier, our mask policy, so to continue to kind of have that on our radar. Our next meeting's February 28th, so kind of perfect timing potentially. And then also, superintendent's asked us to look at the kindergarten enrollment policy. So we have like a lot of different things that we're looking at. But probably for tonight, you know, one of the most important being the policy that we've placed on the table. And if you remember the last meeting, I had shared that these were policies, draft policies that MASC had written. They just came out. We kind of got a preview before they kind of pushed it out to school committees, if they even have yet. And they were written with a lot of consultation with the Attorney General's office. Again, really congruent with the current regulations, and you can see the citations there. A little bit more inclusive in terms of some of the backgrounds and identities of people that are highlighted that aren't in our old policy. So everything from marital status and familial status, et cetera, that wasn't there. But then also some of these added commitments. And this is all just kind of like one of the first steps as we continue to work with some of those other policies. And I don't know if you wanted to add how it all kind of fits together.
Sure. So the non-discrimination and harassment policies, 104 and 104R, make reference to you know, how things will be reported and how things will be investigated. And so those references really align with the new Title IX standards. So Title IX also includes sexual harassment. And so we're going to talk about in policy communication a complement policy, a separate, an additional policy for Title IX and sexual harassment, which will be a complement to these 2 policies that we are putting forward tonight. So I think our plan is to work on a social media and technology policy, and to work on an updated sexual harassment and Title IX policy, and present those to the committee next.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, that was perfect. Sounds great. I think we have, I don't know if you want to do a
Let's go ahead
motion
and make the
first?
motion. We do have a motion, yeah, we can discuss from there. Move the school committee approve policy number 104R, non-discrimination policy including harassment and retaliation, and policy 104, non-discrimination, including harassment and retaliation, as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
Is it weird that they both have the same name? I know it's the same thing, but I didn't know if there's a way, except for the policy number, to differentiate.
The differentiation is the 104 and the 104R.
Okay, that's it.
That's the way that they've been shared.
Okay.
And one refers to the regulations and one refers to the Mass General Law,
Okay.
right?
If you
And
look
so-
at the policy book, they're all kind of numbered in that like
Mhm.
100, and so I think we're just taking that guidance from MASC, like that the
Correct.
naming is kind of in line with, and things kind of go together that are numbered similarly. It is a little odd.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank the policy subcommittee. This is important work. Sometimes policy development can be a little dry, but notwithstanding, but you know, notwithstanding that, it's really important work. The type of things that you guys have handled and recommended back to us this year have been really very timely and very critical. So, thank you for making this work for us all.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed? Okay.
Can I just, sorry, make one comment? When Kevin said we were dividing up the handbooks, I don't want anyone to think that we're rewriting the handbooks. It's a review.
In your spare time, you're gonna rewrite.
That is on the administration for each grade level. It's just that we'll be reviewing them like at the same.
Yeah.
Go for it, Amy.
Right? Nothing else to do.
That's a good clarification.
Yeah.
So good.
All right, future dates and agenda items. So on our agenda, it says our next meeting is next Tuesday, the 15th, which we do have a meeting on the 15th. We do also have a meeting that Tom mentioned just a couple minutes ago that's happening tomorrow at the Galvin at 4 o'clock with our WEA leadership. It's going to give us a chance to kind of hear from the union as a group. It is a public meeting. It is a normal meeting, but it is fully focused on kind of that topic. So that's happening tomorrow night. We're meeting again on the 15th. We are also meeting on March 1st, March 8th, and March 22nd. On the 1st, we will be talking just about budget, as I mentioned. It is going to be a fully focused meeting on budget. On the 8th, there will be a budget forum for the public to come and give feedback on the budget. And then we will have a regular meeting following that. And then we will also meet on the 22nd, which is when we will vote on the budget. So that's why we have kind of a lineup of meetings that allows us to stay in line with the kind of second and fourth Tuesday of the month, and as well as sneak in an extra meeting there on the 1st because we need to get the budget in front of us before it goes in front of FinCom. So with that,
Can I just jump in real quick? Sorry. Just because I've been asked by a few parents, the meeting that we have tomorrow night, although public, is not televised.
It is not
just
televised.
So people aren't looking for it. Okay.
Yep, fair. Stephen?
I just want to mention for next week's agenda, we're going to have the Safe Routes to School folks. Judy Crocker, who works with Mass DOT, and she'll come in with some folks from our youth council to talk about the work that they've done both down at the Galvin area and the high school and the Woodville, and sort of where they are in their processes and hopefully sort of where we can sort of help them get in the future and just get safer routes for our kids.
Awesome. All right, committee comments. I'll start down here. Amy Lehman.
Take Latin.
Take that. I think I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Amy?
Just wanted to say thank you to the kids that spoke tonight and all the guests that we had and the work that the teachers have put into all of the stuff they presented tonight. So thank you.
Mike?
A dinner for me. I talked about it at CPAC, and I'll be talking about that more in the future, so I'm all set.
Stephen?
All set.
Tom?
All set, thank you.
I think I'll just reiterate, Amy, I think I can say this for all of us. We had a lot of good, meaty presentations tonight, good work, kind of at all levels, right? We got to kind of hear about things at all levels, and it was a long presentation, but it was a good presentation. I don't know that in the 3 years that I've sat at this table that I've heard a health presentation Certainly not in that depth. That is.
They were making up for lost time.
Yeah, it was needed. I mean, I certainly have been asking for it for a couple of weeks, so I was glad to see. I think it's important for us to all know, like you said, there's 9 years of health going on. So it was good for us to see.
Yeah,
And
really.
it was, yeah. Tom, motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting of Tuesday, February 8th, 2022.
Second. Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? All right. Have a good night, guys. Good night.
Good night.